Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode number 20 of Doppler's Gear Garage. I'm so glad you're able to join us this evening. We are going to have a very, very interesting show for you. The goal of tonight is multifaceted. The most important thing I want for you is to walk away with this sense of how you can take your journey to another level through some of the things that I've learned in the process of taking my journey through a couple of different levels. It's going to be a kind of a fun walk back through time. We're going to get a chance to pull out a little bit of the various swag that's been created over the years and pull out a few CDs, and we'll also kind of every so often refer back to this guy because the story for me would be incomplete without Joe. And I think, it's a great starting place. How many of us, fail to realize that Joe Satriani, just like each of us, had a dream and kind of went, I need to take some steps forward to do that. So, I'm going to roll up my virtual sleeves here because we're going to cover a lot of stuff. And let's dig in. So, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. Grew up around music. At age 8, I was accepted into this group, the San Francisco Boys Chorus. From that period on in my life, I basically was learning about ear training. Basically, the ground layers of what I was going to be doing was already in place. In other words, I was scale singing. I was comparing the minor scale to the major scale. So by the time I ended up in Joe Satriani's teaching studio, I was already kind of thinking about how scales related to one another. But I wasn't necessarily thinking about how that happened on the neck. And for 3.5 years, I took hour lessons with Joe. And at one point, I very semi-ingeniously figured out that if I positioned myself as his last student, I could get a slightly longer lesson, and he would drive me to the BART station, which is kind of train station for public transportation here in the San Francisco Bay Area. That relationship kind of gets us to our first topic, which is really this concept of people. Now, I have brought some notes with me, and this is not going to be the sexiest of presentations, but at the same time, it is going to allow me to tell the story as it relates to you. Why am I telling my story as it relates to you? Because the things that I've done starting in 1995 are setting in place the things that I've learned, the footsteps that I've taken. I can look back and I've gathered a bunch of the folders from when we put out the first record of being able to just kind of pull this stuff together and just kind of go, wow, this is where it started. These are the things that I was thinking about, and these are the things that I was able to do because of the things I was thinking about. Most of the moves I got right. Some of the moves I got wrong. But as I look at the world today, through the lens of what I learned in that first record, and some of which through the lens of the second record, as I get ready to make the next record, most importantly, give you a download of the things that I think are going to be valuable for your endeavors, that's going to set me up to do that. Now, one of the things I'm very, very grateful for is that I reached out and asked a few questions of people, just that if they were able to tune in, for one, which I really appreciate your doing, and two, if they had any questions in advance. And I am particularly grateful for the fact that there were some really, really great questions that appeared on my Facebook. And so I just really want to speak to that because there was one in particular that I really, really just loved. So let me find that particular question here, and I'm going to read it to you because it really struck home with me. And this was from, where are you on the thread here? Come on. There you go. Michael Brock. Michael, I know from the various Dreamcatcher events, guitar camps. And he really gave a whole bunch of stuff. But one of the things, he was talking about online presence and building a following and a Spotify playlist. And he really touched on so many things that made me completely change up how I was going to present this. And I am so thankful that he did, because what it enabled me to do was kind of go, hey, what are the things that people are thinking about that I can best serve? So with that said, we are going to pull over to the face down cam here. All right, so this isn't going to be particularly glamorous, but it's going to help us tell the story. So these collections of paper tell the story of the first record. And this little piece of paper here is the first place I'm going to start. It's a guy named Scott Ruttenberg who, without his help, and the key point of this is it's really easy as a musician to be completely self-absorbed in the music, in the mission, in trying to achieve this thing that's burning inside you, and forget that the journey is all about the people that you surround yourself with, good, bad, and in between, making good choices around that. Scott Ruttenberg was a manager at a local Tower Records. And when we get to the record side of this thing, he just made everything possible. And he was arguably, if I could say, next to Joe Satriani, the most important person in this, because he set me up for success in ways that I could never have done for myself. I also have to say that this right here from days past, that was my teaching roster when I used to teach 40 hours a week. My students have played an invaluable role in this. I'm telling you this because the people that you're teaching will be your first super fans, regardless of what you want to do, whether it's your kid that you're teaching or the kid down the block or the kid at the local high school where you teach or the kids that you know, from youth group at your local church. That outpouring of what you know into somebody else sets in motion some really key relationships that will grow you as a person and as a musician, and they will also give you the funds to support your various endeavors. I'm a list maker, and when I get ready to go out and do a gig, it's funny, this is from 25 years ago, but it's a list and a little checkbox. I'm still doing the same thing there. This I thought was interesting because basically what it was a little poll that I gave to my students 25 years ago, kind of going, hey, you know, what are you interested in? It's before I ever released a DVD. It's before I ever released any CDs. I wanted to know what people are thinking. It's really easy to create something without making sure that you're in the right market doing the right thing. Okay. Now, one of the other things that's kind of interesting is that in time, you'll kind of find, as I'm looking at some business cards here, the people that seem to matter in your universe, many of whom stay significant, like the Joe Satrianis, and a number of whom fade away. And I think one of the morals of this story, for those of you that have kindly tuned in, is this. I've been in this game for 25 years. I'm getting ready to release yet another record. I'm getting ready to release more educational content. I am a manic learner about technology. And those different things have had legs. So the things I'm going to unpack here, I think are going to serve you well. So let me get to unpacking them. All right. Now, one of the questions that Michael had really was awesome. And I'm actually going to show you some stuff here. So Taxi is an organization. There you go. That is kind of one of those organizations that has been around to help musicians find work, gigs, play songs, so on and so forth. And one of the questions that Michael had was, you know, there are these companies that'll kind of help you get placed on Spotify. Is it worth it? And that is a very interesting question. And one of the other kind of questions that came in there, and I think that was from Drew, but I will be able to quantify that in a bit, was, you know, hey, you know, how much, basically the questions were around of this pay-to-play mentality that kind of has been in the business for decades. How much does it matter, and how much should it matter to us? And recently, one of the companies I work for, ISO Acoustics, they make these great isolators for, well, amplifiers and speakers. They are in studios all over the world. They were approached to do something for Premier Guitar, and they're breaking into the guitar market, and they make great stuff. Now, it's very convenient because I'm looking at in the background here. That mic there is just placed there. That amp behind me there, I'm actually running direct out, and I just happen to put the mic up in front of it. So, had that actually been mic'd, there would have been one of the isolators underneath that. So, the point being is that Premier Guitar reached out. They wanted to see if you'd be interested in doing an ad, and we talked through it just in the same way I used to look at the different things that I was offered opportunities to do and go, here's the pluses, here are the minuses, this is how much we're going to invest. If it's a total flop, are we prepared to spend that money and have it flop? And we said, yeah. And as it turned out, like that video that I did, which was shot pretty casually, got like 5,000 or 6,000 plays and a really overwhelmingly positive response. If you don't take the step, you can't make the journey. I'm not saying it always makes sense to take the journey, but unless you actually are willing to kind of get in, and every so often, although I don't necessarily think of it as a gamble, but in the music business, sometimes it is a little bit of a crapshoot, you just got to be willing to actually put some skin in the game, and sometimes you're going to lose. One of the other types of investment / marketing things that happen are these kind of, if you will, B2B things. Now, Scott Bradoka, when I put out Ground Zero, we had like a letter exchange, literally via snail mail, and he said, hey, maybe we can help co-promote one another. And he's somebody that ended up touring Europe, opening for Jeff Beck, is still in the game. So the point being is that this understanding that helping each other as part of the journey is an important part of that. This taxi part of this, the placement thing about getting somebody to help you get someplace that maybe you can't get yourself, I think is important. This next page that I kind of went to that's not particularly worth looking at is from Concrete Marketing. And right around the time as I was getting ready to put out the first record, I went down to the Foundations Forums, what I believe the convention that they had in Los Angeles was. Pre-grunge, basically by the time grunge hit, it was like over. But at that point, it was metal, 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 metal. And people that were interested in figuring out how they could get their records out and get their material out and get their music out, which is kind of part of this. And I realized there's some questions about, hey, I just want to know how to use Studio One. We're going to get there. But the idea of going down to this thing, and I ended up hiring basically a guy named Steve Prue to work the record. And we're going to come back to that in a little bit. But had it not been for that decision, we never would have been on the radio. What a lot of you folks don't know is that getting an instrumental record obviously is nearly impossible to get on the radio. But back in the day, radio actually was relevant. And if you could get your album on the radio, people noticed. And one of the people that I had opted not to actually kind of have involved in my record was a guy that ran a very well-known instrumental guitar company, recording company, a guy that I love dearly, but I was just like, that particular brand of instrumental was a little different from the stuff that the guys like Joe and Steve were doing, where I was like, it's a different sound, it's a different vibe. I knew that I didn't fit with what was going on there. And I remember a conversation with this guy who I love dearly, and he was saying, but you got radio. And it was a time when radio mattered. So one of the things that Michael asked was, well, what about the Spotify thing? Getting somebody to kind of get you onto some curated Spotify lists. I am not a Spotify expert, so let me preface that. But I would ask them for a list of artists who they have worked with, and you can start doing some checking out for yourself. Look at the number of streams they've got. Look at how good a job they actually did of doing it. And then the great thing about social media, unlike the olden days, you can actually reach out to somebody on Facebook and just kind of go, how'd it go? What were the pros and the cons? Same thing, we're going to end up in a little bit talking about this whole concept of, hiring, buying onto a tour. Because invariably, there are going to be some folks that are going to be like, hey, I want to go out on the road. And that's an important decision to make. And or, tour locally. When we get to the live section of this, playing locally is one of the most important things you can do to it's kind of like going to the gym. You don't build many muscles just sitting at home on the couch, eating chips and flipping the channels. This little guy here is akin to one of the other questions was, does it make sense to do CDs now? In my opinion, gosh, I hope that little graphic that I'm looking for is here. It's not. All right. Gosh darn it. All right. In my opinion, no. And I say that from experience on two levels. I had a company called Gear Tunes, which, there we go, there's a little asset there, was really a huge opportunity to get to know a number of manufacturers. I'm closing that Facebook window right there, right now. There we go. All right, good. Shush. All right, so in so doing, what preceded Gear Tunes was Get Killer Tone DVD series. Yeah, I was so excited about that DVD series until Apple stopped producing computers with DVD players in them. I was like, there's an emoticon for what my life became like, because I was like, oh snap. The good news is that I've been blessed, and I just walked into the next season, which was Gear Tunes. We ended up partnering with Celestion, Orange, Eminence, Electro Voice, and Sweetwater, and doing this streaming event that was the launch of the company. And just I've been so fortunate about the relationships that I've been surrounded with. Again, it's about relationships. So doing something that is as technically challenged as a DVD or a CD in this age does not make sense. However, and gosh darn it, I know it's amongst my stuff, but basically I have kind of the graphic of this, having toured and having to look at how much stuff I can fit in a van, and then realizing how much you make from selling CDs, which is an awful lot. Great profit margin on the road. Digital download with some sort of little digipack thing that you can sign and sell at shows is genius. All the benefits with none of the disadvantages. Yes, it takes up a little space, but not like a bunch of CDs, which are significantly thicker. Great way to go. And, you want to give people a memory. And, even if you end up with a bunch of those memories in your basement, like many of us have, you don't know until you know. And that's what I've got to say about that. Okay. So in terms of, just to wrap that up, in terms of technology, this whole thing is changing. So one of the other questions was, well, kind of streaming versus a CD. CDs are done. But again, having something to sign at a show, or, as you build your friend and fan base, something that you can sign and send to somebody, that's a big deal. Big deal. All right, let me just make sure I've extracted all the good things out of this that I wanted to. And I've got so many different layers here. It is kind of nuts. Yeah, I want to actually go back to one last little thing. Glad I found this. Okay. There are some people that you're going to have these micro relationships with. This is Babs's card. I don't know where Babs is, but Babs Farney was the manager of a Tower Records in Dublin, California. I was out there picking up a lens the other day, and I drove by, and I must admit I got a little emotional. I remember how well she treated me. Didn't know me from anybody, but she took the time to make me feel special about something that was very important to me. I will never forget Babs. Matter of fact, I'm going to look her up on Facebook, and I'm going to say, thank you, Babs. There are people that will help you in your journey that you'll never really get a chance to know. Those relationships are invaluable in your journey. And those of you that are associated with music stores, this was the handwriting of Helene Jeffries, ran Arinda Music, the little music store in the town that I grew up in. And she changed my life. First music store I ever worked in, first music store I ever taught in. And there are going to be people on your journey. It's all about the people. It's not just what you can do for them, because sometimes it's the stuff they do for you that it's not until years later that you kind of go, that person made a difference. And that's a mistake. Don't wait. Okie dokie. I've attempted to gather these files in some sort of intelligent order, and sooner than later I will be dipping into the questions here. So this is a really important thing, regardless of what it is that you want to do, because I have to believe that 99.9% of you, once you're done recording whatever it is that you're going to record, you want to send it out there to somebody. So as you go to do that, it's kind of like, you want to have a destination in mind, right? So what I did was I gathered what were the resources from back in the day. Now, the interesting thing is when we put out Ground Zero, the guitar magazines were really, really a big deal. And Guitar World was, from my space, the place I wanted to be. So we advertised in Guitar World and Guitar Player. John Levy, who's now the publisher for Premier Guitar, was my guy at Guitar Player. These people, the ones that are in the game, stay in the game. Do not burn bridges. So in any case, there are some resources that, although the names may have changed, the concept of what they represent in your journey doesn't. And for those of you that have either been in LA, Tom, this is for you, baby. You remember Music Connection. So that was a resource that you were able to get all these great lists of record companies, independent record companies, managers, and publicists. So inside this collection of goodies here, I have all these things that I saved because I'm a pack rat, but they've been saved in this little folder thingy, and they've been with me all these years. And so there are some things that are akin to some sort of kind of collective that you can kind of be part of. That is to say, it's a little bit like paying to be part of somebody's maybe curated Spotify. So let's say I had Doug Doppler's pay me lots of money, all instrumental Spotify channel. Kind of a good idea. That I'm going to go out and promote all over the web. In turn, you want to be on that because I'm getting a bunch of people that are interested in that. There's something there. In any case, you're becoming part of a collective. And when you have the opportunity to become part of a collective, that has a lot to say with stuff. So these magazines were kind of these collective points that allowed musicians that didn't have a deal, didn't have distribution to come together. Now, obviously, we live in a very different world, or do we? That is to say, as I went through this and I was really thinking those questions through, I was going, it's not that different. There were people that were approaching me about like, hey, we can help you and you can help us. Most of the decisions I made were really good ones. There was a compilation CD that I think I did for Guitar for the Practicing Musician, and I believe there was also one that was associated with Guitar World. And I still run into people that are like, hey, I heard about you on those CDs. So to that point of like, does pay to play make sense? You got to weigh about it. You got to think, does it make sense financially? Of all the places you can spend your money, could you do better by running a Facebook ad? Could you do better by doing an Instagram campaign? Or, can somebody who has an audience that's built in help you reach their audience? Obviously, you're already thinking those sorts of things, most likely. And if you're not, now you are. Okie dokie. Clubs and booking. Okay. Oh boy. First of all, I've had all sorts of experiences at different clubs. The first time I ever had anything stolen was by a sound guy who had a drug problem. I got it back. It was my tuner, but I was like, it was there. Now you see it, now you don't. It's just like, oh, okay. Now, there's a guy named Jimmy Arsenault. Still buds after all these years. And Jimmy and I go back to the 80s. He used to book the Stone and the Omni. I think he also did the One Step Beyond. So basically, he was the guy in the Bay Area. Like, if you wanted a gig, Jimmy was your guy, at least at the venues that John Nady of Nady Wireless owned. And Jimmy was incredibly good to me. And I was also really always up front. And, there was some ticket selling that happened back in those days and so on and so forth. But he knew that I was a worker, in that hard work has never been something that I had a problem with. So as you begin to think about going live, whether it's in your local area code, zip code, and beyond. There are some lists out there that you can get access to. Obviously, not on paper anymore, but you can find out where you're going to play, and then potentially do something like what we did before the album. Actually, I think the album came out. I found out that Steve Morse was getting ready to come out on the road, so I had enough connections that I think we did 5 dates with the Steve Morse band. And so, I knew the talent buyers at the different venues, including Jimmy. And so we did all these shows through kind of Northern California and Nevada. And I remember the tour manager for Steve Morse's band at the time was like, had I known, I wouldn't have let you guys do it. Fortunately, he didn't know. Steve was awesome, by the way. Moving on. Oh, okay, we get to the live part. This is kind of fun. I couldn't find it in time for tonight, but these little cards that we used to make before shows, this was from my band, Captain Crunch. We played the Omni New Year's Eve 1990. But I found little cards like that from this guy named Steve Vai. You might have heard of him when he was living in Los Angeles, still promoting a show. And so, if Steve can do it, you want to keep in mind, yes, there's lots of digital invites, but when we get back to this live playing thing, how do you let people know? There aren't record stores to leave these things at anymore, and, the music store thing is changing. But these, I could actually say that, I don't know, I would give it a 35% possibility if I could get somebody to do it for me. I'd put together a nice looking graphic, and I'd have them put it with Guitar Center's permission by the door. Doug Doppler playing at such and such a venue, or opening for so and so. Because here's the thing: I was watching kind of one of the internet YouTube influencers, and they were saying, "Look, you know what? Every time you do a new YouTube video, you get a chance to have somebody who's never seen anything you do go, I'm seeing your first video for the first time, or they're seeing your video for the first time." And that really stuck with me. It's just kind of like, if you don't put yourself in a place of discovery, you're just waiting for it to come to you. There it is. So here's a little thing. So basically, this is the equivalent, although this is actually kind of I don't think it's technically called a J card, because J cards went inside the cassette, and they kind of look like a J because they look like a J. I don't know which is backwards or not. But the point being is basically this is what would go into your CD, and basically this is what I would use and have a download code for a digital download the next time I go out on the road. And I would say it's highly probable, with everything that I'm feeling about this, that I'm going to actually put out this record, and then I'm going to put together some sort of a band, as opposed to having tracks like I did when we toured with Schenker, and I'm going to go out and play some shows. Northern California, Southern California, and I think it's going to be a heck of a lot of fun. A Doppelt effect ticket. Now, you heard me right, Doppelt effect. Now, wait a second. Saturday, July 25th, 1992, Saturday night at the Stone. My buddy Jimmy, headlining the Stone, which was kind of like the club in San Francisco in those days. Gone, of course, sadly. But the point being is that my given name is Doppelt. And the funny thing is buried in these files here, is a thing from Concrete Marketing when we actually were doing the contract for them working the Ground Zero record, where they misspelled my name even once I changed it to Doppler. And the whole thing started with a trip down to Tower Records, and I'm kind of looking where, Doppelt would be in between. Kind of, it was always like pretty much next to Dokken, which is a great place to be, in my opinion. But I kind of realized, I'm like, wait a second, if they can't spell the name, they can't find the CD. So Doppelt is how my name is natively spelled, and Doppler gets us close enough. And speaking of Dokken, we were rocking with Dokken. That was one of the funnest shows. Again, that's my buddy. That's my buddy Jimmy Arsenault who booked that. And before we move on, I will say, for those of you that have not had the pleasure of playing live and are kind of going, doesn't matter. The thing about playing live and bringing your songs to life and getting out of your studio and actually playing with a bunch of musicians is when it's great, it's phenomenal. And that particular venue had an amazing sound system. And I remember that show in particular, like you opening for Dawkins as then a completely unknown guitar player. Basically, you come out and everybody's giving you that. And you're like, it's cool. You know what? By the time we're done, you're going to be fist pumping and high fiving the guy next to you, and you're hugging your girlfriend, and you're going to be back at that merch table. Because the thing is that every time I went into a venue, I was a man with a mission. I knew that they were going to like what we did. It wasn't like I'm trying to sell them a bar of soap that they have to wash their mouth out with, right? But you've got to go in with the right attitude. When you see a bunch of guitar players who are staring you down, you're just like, it's cool. That was just such a great show. And the sound there that night, I still remember there's a thing that happens in a live venue when the guitar is crazy loud, but finely tuned in the PA. You hit the string and you can literally feel the pickups gently vibrate underneath the strings. It's a phenomenon. And it's not like that thing when you're too close to a woofy monitor and that thing happens. That's a different type of pickup vibration. This is when everything is finely tuned. The sound tech is, we didn't bring our own sound person for that show. And the sound is just totally dialed. And they're just like, yep, we're going to do you right. Live is super important. Nothing like a Doppler effect set list. Hey, I am, like I said, a total pack rat. So here's one of the other things about this process. These days, we wouldn't have something like this. These are the actual Doppler effect mailing lists. And my buddy Anthony Librand is actually on here, as are some folks that I'm still in touch with. Again, these are lifelong relationships. Actually, the guy that Mark Perez, the guy that I bought my wedding ring from, he's on here too. There's just people become family, and it's an amazing thing that happens. Video Carlos Hernandez, my buddy. We were on the phone yesterday. These relationships that you have a chance to build, don't underestimate the people that come to your shows and their ability to support what you do for decades. It's easy to do because you're so focused on the goal. Focus on the people. These little bits and pieces here are important because, again, I really wanted to talk about this stepping stone thing. Realize this is not the sexiest presentation, but I don't need to switch to my... Hello, switch to my... Why are you not switch? Because I'm not in the right flipping application. There we go. Switch to this every time I want to go there, and then wait for it to get focused. Yeah, we don't have to do that. The point being is that this was a clipping for the House of Blues and in Los Angeles, which I really, really wanted to play. And I actually never played that venue, but there is a photo that my wife sent along that I should be able to bring up on my iPhone or something like that from when we did play the House of Blues in Chicago with Michael Schenker. Without those other shows way back when at some of the venues that, and the place I got a chance to play generally were awesome, but, there are some crappy, stanky, urine-stenched places that I played that live music should not be presented in that are part of the path. Got to get over yourself to get on with yourself. The artwork folder. Okay, great. Okay, so the way you present yourself is important. So having a sense of presentation. Mrs. Doppler just sent something through. I just saw the text come through again. Let's see if I can pull that puppy up here without destroying the internet this evening. There we go. Hang on a second. There we go. Let's see. I should be able to get to that like this. There we go. I love this photo. Let's see here. And let's get over here. And gosh knows what it's going to jump to when I do that. There we go. Come on. We're going to jump over to preview. Where is preview? Preview. How about Finder? No? Doppler breaks the internet again. Hold on a second. I can't. All right. Hang on. I can do better than that. I knew I was going to potentially regret that. So what? You're still in messages is what you're in. Okay, let's see if we can get there from messages. Messages. There we go. There we go. There we go. Get over there. 629. Michael Schenker group with Doug Doppler. Holy cow. If you grew up in the 80s, there was no escaping Michael Schenker and his awesomeness. So, Schenker was a huge influence. Still is. I've been listening to actually a bunch of Schenker as of late because as I'm getting ready to make this next record, and little tidbit here, as you get ready to make recordings, records, whatever it is that you do, you want to do one of three things. One, collect influences. Listen for things that people are doing that you're like, I can borrow from that just a little bit. And or listen for how people do things that are iconically their own. Number two, go back through any and everything that you've done and listen back through your own catalog and going, what are the things that I could refine or revisit that I want to grab a hold of? In my particular case, one of the things that I purposely started shying away from because it was becoming a crutch was playing sequences, pairs of strings with 8th note or 16th note triplets from the 3-note per string modes. And going back and listening to Ground Zero the other day, from top to bottom, I was like, I need to own that again. The reason I stopped doing it was because I started going to it as a crutch instead of going to it for a mode of musical expression. Keep that in mind. So what we've got here is actually, I will go to, this is pretty funny. Oh, you guys are going to laugh. Now, I hopefully have switched out of that. There we go. So this right here is a fax. Yeah, I used to use fax machines of the artwork from that first record. And that first record, one of the things that we did is I had quotes from Joe, Neil Sean, and Alex Skolnick. And I've got, I might read a couple of them here and there. But literally at that time, people were so excited about instrumental music, and that people wrote from all over the world. And it was indicative of that time. It was a really awesome time. People were a lot nicer. Now, that's excluding the folks from the Dreamcatcher events camps, because those folks, you are awesome. I can't say enough about those camps and you folks, friends, lifers. Just an amazing group of people that arguably part of the reason you're so cool is many of you actually grew up back then when people were actually really nice to each other and weren't mean to each other on the road and weren't all kind of nasty and grumpy. Like, the world has gotten... Yeah. In any case, artwork was an important part of that. And, previewing artwork, spending some money on art was an important part of this. One of the other things that we did when we sent CDs out to stores was that we would also send out a poster for them to put up on the wall. And again, there's the Satriani, Neil Sean, and Alex Skolnick quotes. The idea is like, look, you got to do something to try and stand out, from all the noise that's going on. Obviously, we're not necessarily going to have a record store in the way that we knew it when I was coming up, right? But there are going to be opportunities, be it a music store or whatever it is, that you're going to be able to place your content more than just your music. Try and get people to play, add you to their spot. Here's the thing: if I were you, and I was in fill in the blank town in Middle America or wherever it is that you are, and there was a music store and they had a playlist, I would go in there and I'd go, hey, you know what? I've got a new album's coming out or that's out. Would it be possible that, maybe you play my album on your playlist, and I'll give you a thumb drive to make it really easy. I'd really appreciate it. And maybe we could put, some sort of flyer somewhere that you could do. I'd really appreciate it. Here's the thing. Again, making friends goes a long way towards making another record. That is the key thing, is another record. As much as I've taken a little bit of time to get there, I'm making another record. There's always going to be another one. I just kind of have waited until I really wanted it, and the time is right. Contracts. Oh boy. And in a moment, I'm going to take a quick second. I'm going to jump into the chat here because I want to see what people are saying, and I don't want to just be talking at you. The goal is to serve you, but not by blah 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 blah. Okay. Super important. Pretty much with both records, without naming anybody, there was just some drama around the business side of things. It's all great when everything's high fives and like, oh yeah. And then when it's not, it's not. Get the business done right away. Do not wait. Because I got to tell you, you're in a much better negotiating position. Thanks for this, Doug. Thank you, Tom. Love you, bro. Oh, so you saw the thing about Music Connection. That was for you, my friend. So Tom and I both went to Musicians Institute. And, that was kind of, hey, Drew, okay, good. Another record is tough. Hold on. Life is more complicated. Chris Stark, the previous comment was in the context of Spotify playlist. All right, I will jump back in because I'm getting, the application that I use to stream has comments come up that I'm not pinning in this moment, but I'm feeling pinny and will pin a few things here in a sec. All right, so the contract thing, first of all, the Doppelt Effect Partnership. I've still got the checks. Concrete Marketing, Inc. Harry Fox Agency. We're going to talk about licensing. FedEx, Save Your Receipts. And then my stepfather. Gone, but not forgotten. I went to him and I said, hey, can we borrow $30,000 to make a record? And we laid out a repayment plan of $400 a month, and I stuck to that repayment plan, and I paid him back. There was a contract. Oh, this is fun. This, dated 3/2/95, is my Ibanez endorsement deal. I've been with Ibanez for 25 years. How about that? Ibanez exclusive endorsement agreement. DiMarzio, via fax no less. 2/8/95. Horizon, that's my buddy Darius. Sooner than later, you're going to hear some of the different rigs. I've got a bunch of crazy stuff coming for the show. I'm so excited. But one of which is basically the stack that's over there. That's one of the Doppler effect era rigs with a pair of Yamaha D1500 delays. And actually, it's kind of funny. People gave me funny looks, but it's a valve state head. That's great sounding head. That was a great little rig. I even still have the switcher. But the cabinets were these Horizon cabinets, and they were designed by Lee Jackson and loaded with British vintage 30s. And those speakers sound amazing. Can't wait to get back to that. All right, the reason I'm still going through here is this is basically from a company called IMC, International Music Corporation. And at this point, I had a student, Ethan. Radio station, come on there, Tim. Hold on a second. Can I pin this? Hold on, come on. There we go. Hold on. I'm going to, hang on. Let's see if I can pin you there. There we go. Hold on a second. I got to jump into this one. I had to take the bait because we talked about radio. I want to jump into this. I work at a small radio station in Montana. Keeping the faith. Thank you. And there's still some of us that look for new stuff that isn't just the same thing that everyone else plays. Thank you. We look for independent music that we think will fit our formats and isn't just the same as every other top 40 playlist. Thank you for keeping the faith. Radio has a place, and we're going to get to radio in a bit. Thank you for that, Tim. Awesome. And thanks for joining us. All right. So IMC was basically the company that owned Charvel at the time. And I had a student, Ethan Solly, that I am Facebook friends with, who borrowed, he ended up borrowing a guitar that I had, and it got stolen out of the back of a car. It was an ESP, basically a 58 Strat reissue kind of knockoff thing. It was a great guitar. I still miss that guitar. And he was like, well, I've got this Ibanez S540 or 540S, I think is what it was at the time. He said, why don't you have that? And Blue became my main guitar. So this was pre-Blue. All right, so this is the producer agreement with the producer at Studio D who did the majority of the record. And then there's another contract that kind of I'm not going to talk about, but it was kind of the part where it's just like when things are good. And the good news is the waters have been smooth, but it just got unpleasant. And I would like to think I wasn't the cause of unpleasantness. But here's the deal. In every dispute, most of the time, especially in music business, I'm going to rabbit trail myself just for a second because this is a classic story. In the music business, usually both sides think they're totally right. So my drummer cohort that played on New Instrumental, who played on a ton of the Shrapnel stuff, he and I were in Los Angeles, and we were at this one club, and this guy said, yeah, that guy that I was in the band with, he stole the rights to that song, and he's this and this and this and this. Literally the same night, a car ride across town, the other club, there's the other guy. It's like, well, that guy stole the rights, and he's this and he's that. And Atma and I looked at each other and were like, let's get the heck out of L.A. So we were kind of living back and forth between L.A. and the San Francisco Bay Area. And we realized this is not necessarily a conducive headspace to be in. And the good news is that, and by the way, I'm really glad I reminded myself of this, you no longer have to be in L.A. to have a deal, So there are a lot of people, that are, that are freed up from having to live in a place where you're just having to swallow poo-poo. Way too much poo-poo. It's really hard living in LA, it's a tough deal. All right. What folder is this that doesn't want to come out? Come on. Here we go. Oh, this is a fun one. Okay, wait. Oh, no, what do we got first? Come on. There we go. Come on. Gotta come out there. There we go. And I managed to not cause too much. There we go. Hey, Tim, this one's for you. It's the radio folder. Okay, so where do we start? Concrete marketing. Okay, this again gets back to Michael's comment about, do you spend the money, don't you spend the money? Jimmy Arsenault, my man, he is on here. Jimmy, couldn't have done it without you. All the things that I learned on the stages of the gigs that you gave me, opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. Thank you. Forever grateful. Yep. Okay. Choke it down with milk. That is very cute. Thank you, Jonathan. All right. Oh, got a little peeking going on there. All right. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So this was there was a thing that a show I was on called The Instrumentals of Rock, and it was the great thing about putting product out is that people will reach out to you because of a couple of reasons. One is that they do want to, kind of put it's kind of like my show. Part of the recipe of my show is I bring people on, and a couple of things get a chance to happen. One, I get a chance to kind of provide what my wife, said is really kind of some sort of edutainment. It's not like I just want to get somebody on the show that's famous and have them, just kind of spout something that you heard somewhere else. My job in this type of situation is to hopefully get them to elicit something that you haven't heard them say before, and hopefully have done enough research that I kind of get them started talking about something that they don't normally get started talking about that we're all excited about. Like, Mike Fraser talking about Angus Young, sitting there playing a track from top to bottom. That's the sort of stuff that I'm in it for. So the point being is that a curator curates. And then there's a kind of a for-hire curator who's like, hey, you can be involved in this thing and maybe you pay a little bit of money, but you come on and, there's a Spotify playlist. When it's reasonable and allows you access to an audience, it's a great thing. So this Instrumentals of Rock, it was some interview that I did that was on the radio. It was very cool. Concrete marketing, again, one of the things that happened there, and this is one of the success stories, is that there basically were these charts, FMQB, the Gavin report, I think the Hard report. I tried to find that particular box and wasn't able to, but basically we were the number 6 most added record in the country on a bunch of charts that mattered, and stayed on a bunch of on the Gavin report for like 6-8 weeks, something like that. And that guy at that record company was really kind of chaffed about it. He was just like, he there's a lot of love between it, so it's totally cool. He was like, you got on the radio. It's just like, and the reality is, without plunking down the chunk of change that I spent to get on the radio, I wouldn't have gone on the radio. So really, again, to that kind of the pay to play thing, is that if you spend your money wisely, the things that you learn are going to be valuable. So inside here are a range of radio stations that at that point it was, the name of the program director, the PD, their phone number, because at that point everybody wasn't on email. And so, my guess is that there's still college radio. And if I were in some power punk pop band and I knew that I could make a bunch of money going around playing, colleges, which I must assume, and I don't know, but I must assume there's still some sort of circuit, because bands still have to go out and play gigs. And, even crappy gigs, you learn stuff, right? Even at a gig where you don't necessarily get treated great by the headliner, you kind of learn, I will never treat people the way I was treated tonight. You never know. You never, ever, 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 ever know. Oh, this is one of my favorites. Okay. This is the Tower Records folder. This is akin to the Internet folder. Okay, so again, everything. I was going to shut up and read through a couple of things. So let me read through comments real quick before I get to the Tower Records, but let me preface the Tower Records bit. Tower Records is analogous to the Internet, Facebook and Instagram and YouTube today. I'm not a TikToker. I'm not a whatever. So the thing is that it is the way you get your music to people. So it's a delivery system. There's always going to be a delivery system. And after Facebook is done being Facebook, just in the same way that MySpace is done being MySpace, there's going to be a next thing. And so, find where your audience is and identify who they are and try and have a relationship with them, right? Really, that's one of the great things about Facebook in particular, is it really gives you an opportunity, unlike YouTube, to get to know people. All right, let me get on over here with the right mouse, numero dos. Okay, so, wow, okay, let me jump into this business. Good. Oh, my word, 52 comments. You guys are prolific. Prolific. All right, come on, get up there. You. All right, come on. There we go. Okay. All right. All right. So first of all, hello to everybody. Let me. The other thing that I would love people to be able to do is put 3 question marks when you got a question about anything. That would be great. Peter Daviduck, hello. All right. Hello to everybody. Jess, hello. Great to see you. Drew, super fans all the way. And he keeps everything. That's Melissa Doppler. Drew, my wife thinks I'm a hoarder. You have no idea. All right. Awesome. Thanks again, Tom. Oz. Oh, snap happens. Okay. So what I want to do here is, as opposed to reading every comment here, I'm going to scroll here. And thanks for kind of chatting in there. That is actually heartwarming. And I do have a feed here, but I want to just make sure I'm kind of taking a look. Axe Slinger. Okay, so, haha, that's what I did when I saw you at Gemstock 20-year anniversary at Zone Music in Katati before I met you. Okay, this is the people story. So, Axe Slinger is one of the people that I got a chance to know around the whole Shanker thing. I've been really fortunate in that whether it's Guitar Hero or Shanker or getting to know the Journey folks loosely, there have been and Satriani and the Vi camp and the Beatrice camp and Dreamcatcher people have been really really kind to me. Now, here's the deal: it's not because I'm special. I'm a reasonably talented guitar player. The biggest reason is that I know how to hang in the room without being an idiot. Nobody wants an idiot around. They just want to hang out with somebody that's fun to be in the room with. And if you play well, that's great. But the thing is that the Shanker thing was just very very special. And Axe was one of the guys that was involved in kind of the people that helped keep Michael relevant. The interesting thing is I was watching multiple Michael Schenker videos earlier today because Michael is one of those guys, like I said, when I go out and listen, I don't think I got to the third one. Listening for the things that you do are iconic. And then finally, at a certain point, you have to stop listening. That was the third thing. Just start doing it and playing it like you mean it. But the Schenker folks were super, super nice to me. And, anytime you go out on a tour, and there were kind of like 1.5 tours, then the second tour happened. It was an awesome tour, went all over the United States. My wife, a driver, and a minivan filled with gear. But we worked really hard, and they just the people were great. Axe was great. And, Ivan has that relationship. 25 years, that was the Steve Vai event. I played outside. Steve's inside. Come in. We hung out for a minute. Steve's been really good to me. Really good to me. So the point being is when you're cool with people, they're going to be cool back. But sometimes it's easy to forget how cool people are. Axe, great to see you on here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Who got a question? Who got a question? My licks. Okay. Tell you what. Tim, thanks again. Gotta love radio. All right. There we go. There we go. There we go. Bonica, what's up, my dear friend? Like I said, it's all about the people. So, quick story. Andrew was in serving in Iraq. I got an order for a DVD, and I'm like, this is one of our guys. And I think I just put some little note. Maybe I sent an extra CD or something. But we become best buds, and here we are today. And we got stuff we're doing in the background. That's all I got to say about that. All right. All right. Good. Questions. I love it. Scott Richards. Hey. Early 90s Seattle grunge is one of the best moments in rock history. What made it so unique? That's so funny. I'm going to say something here that's going to be kind of funny. It kind of ended everything for guys like me. That's one of the things that made it unique. But the other thing is, it's so funny. Like if people could actually hear the stuff that I actually listen to, reading, talking, and then I'll reply, Andrew. The grunge thing was, it's so funny that Dokken flyer. I remember going into the warehouse and asking to put up a flyer, and which they let me do. And I was talking with the guy there, and I said, "Oh, into Dokken?" He said, "Oh, I used to be." And I was like, "Oh, you elitist snoot." So the funny thing is, I don't listen to that stuff anymore. It's just like, I mean, I understand that your tastes change, but it was just like one of those moments. I was like, I left it upstairs, but what was great is one of the things that I had was like a top 50 radio thing. And what was neat about it is I was looking back on it, like Stone Temple Pilots, one of my favorite bands from that era. Scott, I saw him, and I saw them when they toured together again. Awesome. But, it was STP, Van Halen, Extreme, all these collections of bands where you kind of went, this is how it was supposed to be, where they kind of, all kind of blended together. That was one of the great things about radio. And kind of YouTube is kind of the antithesis of that. I watch a lot of different streams of different types of videos. When I'm exploring streaming videos, all I see is related videos. When I'm in my Van Halen stuff, all I see is 80s bands and more Van Halen. YouTube is not really great about kind of curating content if you're wanting to expand your lane. It is what it is. The point being is that grunge, The short version is that people got tired of the wannabes who just kind of figured if they put on some cowboy boots and fluffed their hair and got the right looking guitar, that was going to be it. Before I leave the rant here, this is what I'm going to say about Poison. When I was down at MI in 1984, this car is working the strip, and these four guys, they kind of pull up into the box. They jump out of the car. Flyer, 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 flyer. I'm like, who's that? Poison. Huh, never heard of them. Now, whether you like C.C. DeVille's guitar playing or not, those guys were working it. Now, what Poison maybe represented to some of us, by the way, I bet you could name a Poison song or two. Those guys were working it. And I remember also when I was working at that store, Orinda Music, there was a flyer from this young band from Los Angeles called Motley Crew. And I remember looking at that because, again, when I was talking about a little bit about graphics, hopefully, and the graphics are important, I was like, I don't know if I liked this band's music, but I love their image. It was so dialed. So dialed. They were kind of like, I'm a big Hanoi Rocks fan, but they were kind of like, we'll beat up anybody who says that Hanoi Rocks sucks. They just, they were glam, but dark glam in a way that wasn't weird. It was awesome. Grunge had an authenticity that really resonated with people that were just like, they also, here's the irony is the record companies turned into a corporate thing anyway. At the point that you're in heavy rotation on MTV, if you think you're not corporate, think again. Okie dokie. All right, so which mouse? There we go, that mouse. Okay, great. Andrew Bonica, that's awesome. So we met at a Schenker show. I love that. That's awesome. So Andrew Bonica, again, one of those Peter Davidic. Hello, my friend. Pretty Boy Floyd. There we go. Oh, no. Hang on a second. Give me just 1 second. Hold on. Okay, you gotta love this. Hold on a second. Gosh, I'm really hoping I can find it in this folder. Oh, no. Come on. I had it. All right. There it is. Covering the phone number. Kanan, take a look at that, my friend. I still have your card. So, Kanan Malak, are you still teaching in Berkeley? I still have your card. No, I'm not teaching in Berkeley anymore. I just teach online, but there you go. So, I am a hoarder to the worst extent, but I was like, you know what? This is the classic example of the relationships and the depth of field. Because Kanan, I taught. Kanan, actually, I remember, Kanan understood inversions of triads really, really well. That's the thing. You learn a lot from your students. It's not a one-way street. I'm much better in my inversions. Thank you, Kanan. I appreciate the inspiration. Holy cow. All right. Let's see. All right. Now, let me see what's coming in over here. Oh, look at you, Jimmy Arsenault. All 7 nights of UFO with Michael on DAT tapes. Kanan, of course, I remembered. Oh, from the Edge. Look at this. We're getting a little nostalgic, people. STP, AIC, Pearl Jam. There we go. All right. Excellent. Flannel. All right. Hang on a second. I think on the cover, wherever I've lost it to this time. Gone. All right. Moving on. Records. So we're at Tower Records. So how does that relate to what we're doing? Well, how do we get people to know what we're doing so they can know what we're doing? These are checks from Tower Records. So the deal is, and here's the thing, this is not a brag moment, so let me be really, really, really clear. This is me going, this is what we did. This is what the results are, and I'm kind of going, what did we do then that I can just fine-tune and propel into this next record? So that's the whole point here. So short version is getting distribution on a record was pretty much impossible. We ended up doing it because of a ridiculous amount of hard work, and I'm still a really hard worker. But what we did was I was like, well, okay, this right here is a consignment form. There we go. Boom. So that guy right there, oh, come on, stop with the autofocus already. So that's a Tower Records, a Virgin consignment form. What a pack rat. But the point being is that Tower Records had this amazing policy, and this is again where it gets down to the people of just being so incredibly cool. I saved this one little quote, and I hope I can read it with, there we go. All right. So the record company was called Firenze Duomo Records. That reminds me, my buddy Marcus was kind enough to let me use the name of his record company and his barcode, so I didn't have to go out and spend a bunch of stuff. Marcus James. And there's a record that he did, by the way, with Joe Satriani on it. In any case, hello, you have some product that's you consigned about 6 months ago. There was a six-month cycle. As per the terms, blah, 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 blah. If you, if you could pick it up on or before such a date, 1995, that would be cool. Who writes like that? It was so nice. It's like, they're basically, hey, loser, come get your stuff. But instead they were like, hey, dude, you got some stuff here. You want to come pick up your records? And this is what was neat, is inside this folder here, and I'm not going to bother reading it to you, but one of the things that I came across was basically a document that one of the folks at one of the Tower Records had put together, basically outlining kind of, what the consignment process was and kind of, how it worked. And, they're really trying to do it to help local musicians get into the record stores so they could build an audience and actually grow. It was a very, very cool thing. Now, my buddy Scott happened to be a manager at Tower Records Berkeley/Emeryville, and he got me this. This is gold. He got me the list of all the Tower Records across the United States, along with the name of the managers and their phone numbers. And Doppler and my buddy Scott and I kind of put our heads together and went, you know what? We want to consign this record at every major Tower Records location across the country. So that when we put the ads in Guitar World and Guitar Player, but Guitar World was the place where we got the majority of the traffic, and Guitar for the Practicing Musician, we could direct people to those Tower Records in the major markets, major DMAs. And that was really a fundamental part of the strategy of what we did, and it worked. And in a little bit, I'm going to kind of, when we get to the distribution part, and again, that is the analogy of distribution is kind of when your videos start going viral, right? Or you start getting enough hits to them. And, sooner than later, we're going to talk about some of the other options for making money. It's not just about selling music. It can be doing gear demos. It can be doing gear reviews. I think we've all seen enough, Guitar Player watches Beat It reaction videos. I don't get certain things. The unboxing videos, it's like, okay, and again, it's great. I don't have to like it. And this is kind of the last thing from the Tower Records one. To whom it may concern, 2696, since you are now being distributed by MSD, I have closed your consignment file and sent the proper paperwork for payment. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Erica. So the deal is, we ended up getting this company, MS Distributors, after a bunch of hard work doing the heavy lifting to kind of come in and go, you guys are on the radio, you're moving some units, not a ton, but enough to make a difference. We're picking you up. And so, the thing is that we did good. And that's the Tower Records folder. What else we got? We're about through these, which means now I can really start targeting a little bit more of some of the other stuff. Mail. Okay. So this is the equivalent of, and I'm not done yet, but basically when I put the post up that I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to be putting out a record. Overwhelming outpouring. Thank you so much. You kind of, when you go to make an announcement like that, it's kind of like, we're having a baby. We're buying a house. you know, you don't always know how people are going to receive it, and the overwhelming response was overwhelming. And so when something like that comes in, I not only go through and like everyone, I'm on my way through replying to every one of those personally. So I'm going to share a little hack with you. That's an interesting one, and I'm still in the process of working this thing out. So my Doug Doppler, Facebook thing is a personal account. It's not like a an artist page. One of the benefits of that means when I actually post something there, people actually see it. So Facebook is totally pay to play. So Doppler's Gear Garage, I'm still kind of transitioning to that. I'm trying to figure this thing out, and like I said, there are things that I didn't say it, but I'm going to say it now. There's things that I figured out and things that I haven't. But the balance of the two, I'm kind of figuring out. Still toying with the idea of whether I'm going to convert the Doug Doppler, main profile into a kind of an artist page. But it basically means that none of my messages are going to reach people until I start putting, giving Mark Zuckerberg some more money so he can buy a larger home in Lake Tahoe. So, okay, let me be clear. I'm an honest guy, pay my taxes and all of that. And I'm not really, when I started Facebook, I was just like, I don't know, Facebook. So, I do realize that, Facebook would love to tax me for actually reaching the people that are my friends. It's a hack. I don't think I'm classically breaking any rules, but it is a hack. So as you begin to think about how you're going to leverage your Facebook audience, is that a hack that will work for you? And that means that you can actually not have to pay Facebook, money to reach the people that are actually friended you and liked you. Like I'm the editorial director of Worship Musician Magazine. To reach our audience, we actually have to pay them to reach the people that liked our page. It's this kind of, that's the sort of pay to play that doesn't sit well because it just feels wrong. That doesn't mean it's okay to rip them off, and I don't feel I'm ripping them off, but it is a hack, and I'm aware of it. In any case, these letters from people all over the world are the equivalent of all the people that took the time to say, hey, excited about the album, blah, blah, blah. And, I've still got these. They're from all over the world. People who saw the ad in Guitar World and were like, hey, I want to buy your disc. Here's a check. I'm in Milan. Here's a check. I'm in the Philippines. Here's a check. I'm in Japan. Here's a check. I'm in Brazil. And there's a ton of these. The relationship that you have on Facebook and also in your YouTube comments, but Facebook in particular, is this kind of a relationship. And it's a great opportunity to let people know that they matter to you. And when you let people know that they matter to you, you start to matter to them. People really, they want something significant in their relationships. They also want to see dividends. They don't want relationships that just suck them dry. There's a lot of dry sucking that goes on in this world. Okie dokie. Oh, licensing and distribution. Okay. So where this relates to again to today is, well, you want to do a cover of such and such a song. One of the things that we did on the at first record was we did a remake of Beast of Burden. There's a company called the Harry Fox Agency that we worked with, and various fax communications, and we ended up paying, where is that? I think it was 66 cents per album sold. So licensing, here's the thing is that, we wanted to make sure that obviously you don't really want to get into a non-reporting thing when it comes to two guys named Keith and Mick. Not a good pair of guys to spar with in the legal ring. So we kind of accidentally went into it while we were recording in the studio. And when we did, I was like, oh, I want to put this on the record. That gets us to the last folder here, and that is the Apollon folder. So one of the things that I desperately wanted to do, and it has yet to happen, but you know what? I want to get to Japan. I want to play music in Japan. And this is a deal that we did for distribution in Japan with a company called Apollon. And there was a magazine that I believe is still in print called Young Guitar. And I saw that Apollon distributed a number of the labels that were kind of like-minded. And so, and this is an interesting thing. I wouldn't do this today because you wouldn't have to, but D. Michael Stein. That's me. Hey, nice to meet you. It was totally uncool for the artist to represent themselves. You couldn't do it and get anywhere. People would just laugh at you. It was an embarrassment. So D. Michael Stein became my alter ego. And basically, Michael Stein brokered this distribution deal with Apollon. And so the neat thing is, as I was going through this, one of the things that I found was a letter to Bernie Grundman, where we had the disc mastered, asking him to send the 1630 and SideQuest disc, totally aged myself there, to Apollon Incorporated. Attention, Kenji Yoshimura. So, pretty darn awesome. And so, I can't reveal the amount they gave me because that would be inappropriate, but they gave us money and they sent over these very cool Japanese manufactured CDs, and they've got a white spine, so I can always tell when I see one. I'm like, oh, that's one of the Japanese ones. Very cool. But one of the things is and this is an interesting point getting into the recording part of the conversation. They didn't like the mix on Beast of Burden and one of the other songs, and we went in and ended up remixing something. There was a comment in one of the faxes. They're like, we think the mix on, it's broken English and it's really funny, but not good. But one of the things that they heard, they're in the record business, so they know a thing or two, is one of the things that was kind of happened when you make your own records is that there were 3 songs that were recorded at Hyde Street Studios with my buddy Matt Kelly and Mark Paley. And those, basically, they were midnight to 6 a.m. sessions, and I would drink a bunch of lattes, and then we'd record madly into the wee hours of the morning. And so those songs, different studio, different engineer, sound different. And then the songs that we cut at Studio D, somewhere in that process, a guy named Carter, who saw me, that's so funny, I was in a band called the Johnny Gunn Band. Joe Satriani, they were looking for a guitar player, and Joe said, hey, check out Doug. And through them, again, relationships, I met this guy, Richie Corsello, who's the guy that really groomed me in the 24-track studio. Taught me pretty much everything I know about being a studio guitar player and just kind of having a clue. But through kind of that series of relationships, I met this guy, Carter, who came to one of the Johnny Gunn gigs. And he was vice president of A&R for Atlantic at the time. He didn't sign the band, but he came backstage and was like, I want to meet you. I was considerably younger, more hair, and I had a certain swagger then. And he saw something that appealed to him, and years later, he ended up managing me. He also managed this guy named Sammy Hagar. Maybe you've heard of him. Co-wrote the song Red. So, he was a guy that was helping out, and his buddy Joel Jaffe was the producer, engineer, and owner, and still is of Studio D, which is where we cut the majority of that record. And Joel and I had a really great working relationship, and one of the contracts that was in there was the one with Joel in terms of kind of the points on the record and whatnot. So the short version, which isn't so short, is that after kind of looking at the whole Harry Fox thing and looking at the fact that the Japanese thing, they didn't really like the mix, and I was like, well, let's pull the song. So the Japanese version doesn't have that on there. The last thing I'm going to say about all of that business is that, in listening to the record the other day, I kind of went, we're going to put it out on iTunes, and I own all the rights for everything. And I was like, but I'm not going to put that particular song. The funny thing is, there was somebody somewhere put a post like, and I really love that song, and I'm like, just when you think you got it figured out, you don't know jack. All right, so let's provide some service here. All right, Pretty Boy Floyd, you gotta love that. All right. So bring me your questions about recording, or anything. Awesome. Victoria Metzger. Hello. Speaking of great people from guitar camps. Great. That's great if you're... Okay, hang on a second. Let's post that up there. That's great if you're able to keep your personal page, but I know people who have had Facebook delete their page because they deemed it business and not personal. Well, there you have it. You know, the interesting thing is that I do post from a personal POV, but yeah, you know, it's honestly it's a little gray, and I actually do have the Gear Garage page, which actually is a definite page, and yeah, so I'm kind of figuring that out. I'm generally a play by the book kind of guy, but I know that there's a little gray area going on there. Oh, look at this, Chris Stark! Look at you! Come on, rock star! I got to tour Japan as a sideman. Oh man, even their tiny clubs have the most killer sound system. Would do it again in a heartbeat. Way to go. That's awesome. That's another really important thing about having a good attitude is celebrate other people's wins. Boy, I got to tell you. Oh, hang on a second. I see a Jimmy Arsenault question. So that's going to get all however many cylinders I've got left. You know, celebrate each other's wins. You know, I cannot stress how important that is for those of us that journey on, because, you know, honestly, putting out records is hard work. And you know, we all struggle with whatever version of, it's you old. Nobody wants another record from you. That's not why I didn't put out a record, but I finally got to the point where, like, I'm excited about doing this. I'm in. But at the same time, you know, everybody you kind of begin to go, like, well, you know, what if you put it out and it sits there like a cadaver? You know, nobody wants a cadaverous record. That's what I got to say about that. Yeah, no, they do it to the little guys too. You know, Facebook is Facebook. That's Facebook for you. You know, I will say this. Many of you are actually seeing me courtesy of Facebook. And more importantly, what I love about Facebook that no other social platform, social network does is I am able to connect with Gabe, Victoria, amazing people that I know from the guitar camps and from my whole life. I love that about Facebook. It's just kind of like we want to tax you to reach people that want to interact from you and want to hear from you. I think that as an artist, having to pony up to reach your audience and build your audience actually is you know, and I will go a step further. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area here, and Jimmy will know exactly what I'm talking about. There was a vibrant music scene here. Think the Grateful Dead, Santana, Journey, Third Eye Blind, Smash Mouth, and then the .com thing. And pretty much all the bands got forced out. So Smash Mouth, Third Eye Blind, and Mrs. Jones, County Gross. About after that, we couldn't afford to live in a place that was a creative epicenter. I realize that happens. I get it. You know, times change and whatnot. But basically, you know, the Facebooks and the Twitters, they basically chased out and made it impossible for the creatives to live and create in a place that has brought us as good a collection of bands as anywhere else in the world. I'll say that. All right. Oops, Premature said I was going to... I still have the swagger. Mrs. Doppler, you're awesome. Andrew, darned if you do, darned if you don't, I guess. Yeah, no, you know... This page is nice. So, okay. So, hey, there we go. So let's talk about a couple of things. Thank you, Victoria Atkins. Is that Gabe or is that Gabe on Victoria's channel? I'm just kind of curious. And either is awesome. So here's the deal. There are benefits to actually having the business side. One is that what particular you can schedule videos and going live in advance. Now, there are some nuances about that. In that, I use a streaming application called Ecamm Live, and then in turn that goes out into something called Restream. To be able to take advantage of some of the different things that, like being able to have a video that's, an event getting ready to go. Oh, that's awesome. It's Victoria on her page and Gabriel on his. Hi. Um, Being able to kind of take advantage of the event launching thing, that's one of the great things about the business side of it. And then the other side is that you have to use a stream key to do that. So working with Restream, there are some nuances to all of that, which I'm not going to bore you with. All right, there we go. Let's dig in. Drew. So his question is, should we be streaming? And or streaming. Streaming. Thank you, Drew. Okay, so the answer, presuming there's two different streamings when we talk about this, but I presume you're talking about getting on and doing this. Absolutely. You can't go back to where we're coming from. I would not want to be in the commercial real estate business to save my life. If I were, I would be running for the hills. Gabriel Metzger, hello, my friend. So the thing is that the WFH, work from home, the artists being expected to be present online in a way that they weren't before, it's only going to happen more. And the great thing around that is there's going to be other types of things that are going to happen as a natural evolution of that. And I will say this, is that there are going to be business opportunities. There are going to be, so say, for example, YouTube's got this, super chat feature. So, if you watch, I don't know, a Pete Thorne thing on Pete's on Sunday, or an RJ Ronquillo on Saturday, right? Super chat, and then you get a chance to potentially ask a question, there are going to be features where musicians can be rewarded for bringing their craft, and obviously the bigger the audience, the bigger that begins to happen. And I think we're just at the very, very, very infancy of this. Now, I will also mention another name here. Where did that go? Oh, well. Oh, hang on. Excuse me. Artwork. Give me just one moment. This is Coolio. No, this is good stuff. If I can find it. There we go. Artwork. Let's see if I can find this. It should have it. Oh, heck yeah. Okay. This is so fun, it's not even... All right, so to the best of my knowledge, in all the guitar magazines, I had heard about this thing that I read in the Sunday newspaper called IUMA, which is an acronym for Internet Underground Musical Archive. And as it turns out, there's this genius named John Luini, who you may or may not have heard of, who is Joe Satriani and Sammy Hagar's web guru genius. And I first met John face-to-face when I was working at BAM Magazine, yes, as a webmaster, and I kind of wandered into I think it was a Satriani show at the Warfield, and there's this bay of computers, and obviously I was like, oh, I know what they're doing. They're streaming the show, and I was like, this is the beginning of this. I mean, there's nothing like, it's a Satriani show, and you're seeing all those computers and go, this is the beginning of something very special. And so, John has been in it. Actually, when we did the Gear Tunes launch, I hired John because John's a genius. So in any case, it turns out that Mr. Luini, when he was a computer science student or whatever the heck he was doing down there, I believe it's Santa Cruz, University of California, Santa Cruz, he started this thing called the Internet Underground Musical Archive. So in said ads, down here, down at the bottom, around there, something like that, is his little business. Hear the track self-portrait on the World Wide Web at http://www iema.com. To the best of my knowledge, I'm the first instrumental guitar player that ever put a URL to be able to hear a track in an ad. Just happened to be something I saw it, I'm like, there's a little something there with this internet thing. I don't know. Posting the music where people can go to it on a computer. I think this could be kind of cool. We should do it. Streaming is that, analogous to today. And just in the same way that I saw that at that moment, I was like, there's a tie-in for what I'm doing here. And imagine that. Like, take your world view and just peel it away for a moment and just imagine you're in 1995, if you were alive then. You see this ad, and at this point, the world is kind of bonkers about instrumental rock. Like Satriani's, Surfing's come out, in '87. Vi is out, and people knew that I was a student of Joe's. So like there was some cachet in the presentation. We were clever about it. That sounds pretentious. We attempted to be clever about it. The point being is that you're like, yeah, I've got a computer. And to actually be able to play a track off the record. Now, I actually have never met anybody that actually did it, but I'm sure there has to be at least one person that did it. And, the point being streaming is that. And it ain't going away. And the way we use it, the way we can monetize it, it's just a thing. All right. I saw a question from my buddy. So, Drew, streaming. Absolutely. All right, here we go. Jimmy Arsenault. Oh, boy, you're going to set me up with that one, aren't you? Jimmy Arsenault, my dear, dear, dear friend. So much history. So much history. No, that's a great question. I am a gear. Okay. Take a look over. Hey, I got it right. So right there is a 1964 Vibroverb, 1 of 500, the Stevie Ray amp. Right above that is a 1969 Plexi Marshall. And right next to that is a Fender modeling amplifier, and I love them all. Seriously, I love them all. And it's a great question. So do I prefer one over the other? So, okay, I'm going to rabbit trail slightly because it's a great question. And arguably one could go, what do I love about them? Like over here, though, you can't see it. And over there in that rack, which I'm zoomed in too tight to see, I've got the Boss Wazza tube amp expander, alphabetically ordered so I don't irritate anybody. Fractal, Kemper, and then Helix rack. And so, and then the two-note stuff is here. They've got a 16-ohm box. They just released. That's on its way to me. I am... Okay, I'm going to try and steer that question, the answer to that, into the framework of all of this. Part of what I talked about was making a living in the music business. Guitar lessons. Obviously, when you've got somebody like Kanan that, we're still in touch. People that have taken lessons. Gabriel, virtually with me. Andrew, via DVD. Product. Where the heck are those? There we go. There's a CD. Where's the DVD? Product. This is one of the... Actually, no, this is one of the interesting things. And when you have an album and you step back into the artist box, asking people to buy the stuff that you're selling gets a lot easier. One of the things that is in my work attire thing is a gear demonstrator. I was very fortunate, kind of like the, just kind of putting out that first instrumental record. It was a well-timed release. I happened to show up at the Orange booth at NAMM. It was flipping crickets. Nobody cared. And I came back on the Sunday and I said, hey, I want to come back with a 6-string and a 7-string. They're like, yeah, whatever. And I'm there on the 6 string, and then I pull out the 7 string. And even Orange at that point was the classic rock company. But I pull out the 7 string, they're like, everybody from the company comes around, well, this is awesome. And I was like, didn't see that coming because I just played, all my best classic rock. I think I'm going to totally impress these guys. It's amazing. We were just like, but as soon as I pulled out the 7 string, all of a sudden they were like, hey. And I was like, well, I do video. I'm kind of getting into this thing. So, fortunately, happened to get into that. And one of the things that happened was we got an awful lot of plays around that brand. And then I kind of went, I'm ready for the next thing. But that revenue stream, just like the music teaching revenue stream, just like the CD revenue stream, just like the DVD revenue stream, products, especially when you're able to frame yourself as an artist, give you the ability to not feel so weird. And this is one of the things, honestly, Andrew and I are, we did a thing with Sweetwater and Line 6, a course curriculum thing for the House of Worship around Helix. And it was really a great opportunity to test the Kajabi is basically it's a CMS, content management system platform that's web based, and basically Kajabi is used by the Brendan Bouchards and the Tony Robbins and the fill in the blank, people of the world because it's great and super easy to use. It was the first piece of course curriculum I did since Whammy Bar Mojo, that DVD. So the point being is that I was really kind of going, at some point I'm going to turn the light switch on, but I felt very uncomfortable about not being in the artist mode and just kind of being in the Doug Doppler guitar dude mode and going, hey, I want you to pay for a product. As an artist, people are used to supporting artists and actually are very excited about it because they we're into what you're doing. So there are, some peripheral advantages around actually putting out product because people are like, good, how else can we support you? They're excited about it. They're also more excited to arguably take guitar lessons from somebody. One of the questions that I saw in the chats there was about kind of teaching and guitar lessons. It's a vital link because, again, and I want to be really clear about this. There's certain lingo that goes with the age. Super fan, I think generally has a good connotation, but I'm always very cautious when I think about grouping the people that I have genuine relationship with into a bucket that, all of a sudden that bucket has a dollar sign attached to it. That makes me very uncomfortable because honestly, that's not who I am. I have enough other areas to, teaching, I get paid really, really, really well. And I haven't had one student quit during the pandemic. I am so grateful and so thankful. You have no idea. Okay. So to the whole tube thing, one of my key goals with all the gear that I am afforded to have kind of show up here is I want to be one of, I don't know, let's just say 5 guys or gals that when they want to go, who's an authority on IRs, who's an authority on modeling devices, who can I go to? And that's been a goal, and it's kind of one of the things that's happening. So the point being is that I love the modeling side of things because it's one of the ways that I can build my brand. I love tube amps. I love it all. And I think that's an important part of it. And, I think we live in an age where, all of these things are upon us. And the streaming thing that's neat about this is that you get a chance to, I will say that, tube amps have a tendency to hiss, So if I were doing this, and I'm on a shotgun up here, and, tube amps have a tendency to so I would have to have some sort of standby solution that I can get to on the other side of the room or channel switching thing to be pop or whatever it is. I think one of my favorite things about modeling gear is you can just leave it on for days or weeks at a time and it doesn't get freaky. It doesn't heat the room. That's kind of one of the strange things. I know it sounds really funny, Jimmy, but one of the things that just I kind of love about modeling gear is you can leave it on overnight. You don't come into a room that's like a sauna. That said, there are certain amps that, in particular, that Vibroverb. When I did that thing for Premier Guitar, I purposely went, I'm going to play through that amp. Now, interestingly enough, I purposely, I did a little bit of testing. I actually used the shotgun to just capture the sound of the room. Got a little tiny bit more of the actual guitar than I would have preferred, but the sound of the vibe in the room was what I wanted. And that was achieved, and people, they could relate to it. It wasn't overly produced, but it was produced. And so when I want a tube amplifier, it's kind of like, do I want a fillet or do I want a ribeye or ribs, right? And I guess really the thing is this. The best analogy I can make is this, actually. There is a tremendous convenience that comes along with modeling. More importantly, it enables me to take all the crazy stuff that's in my brain and build rigs like that, where I'm able to basically take the delays and the reverbs, put them hard left and right stereo, bring the guitars in left and right, basically 2 different amps, 2 different cabinets. Then I can add any modulation, maybe on one side, maybe on both sides, and then I'm basically able to change out the amps if I want to, change out cabs, the amps, change out the cabs and IRs. I kind of almost always go for dotted eighth on this side, quarter note on that side. That said, every so often something changes it up, and I think it was that little Fender that's over there. There are things that you believe until they become disproven. I had always believed that, to get a great chorus sound, it's got to be in stereo. Just like you're kidding yourself if you think you're going to get a great chorus sound in mono. There's a sound, and this gets into this whole sound collecting thing. I am, though it's not to rip people off in this mode, and again, I'm saying this for you to think, does this work for you? I'm taking little snippets, and I literally record stuff off TV, and then we'll flip it back. And then I also do the same thing for video editing stuff. I'm always looking for information to feed my mind, so as I begin to process the things that I want to do, I have all the choices to choose from. And in so doing, that little amp, I'm a huge Wes Borland fan. Sorry, I love the biscuit. What can I say? Even Fred Durst. That red cap. What can I say? So the point being is, there's a clean chorus delay sound that Wes has. I'm just like, that's a tone. And I pulled up this preset and I did a little tweak, and I'm like, it's the Portland tone. And then I went back and, furiously went back. It's basically kind of like the vibe that's at the beginning of Mission Impossible theme that they did. It's just the biscuit rolling, just on it. Just what a great track. Dun, dun. Yeah, YouTube. Gotta watch that. All right. The point being is, I'm like, oh, I've got the Portland tone. And actually going back and listening, I was like, not for any doing of my own, but the stupid little $249 modeling amplifier, plug DI out into Pro Tools in mono. I'm like, that's got to be as good a chorus tone as I've ever heard, and maybe the best chorus tone I've ever had. Delay, compressor, I was just like, oh, this is ridiculous. So the point being is, that's the beauty of modeling, a $249 amplifier. Sorry, went down the rabbit trail, but there we go. All right, thank you for that, Jimmy. You are such an awesome dude. Okay, Richard Doyle, I'm not missing you tonight, my friend. What is your general approach for laying down an original solo, or are they all unique in every way? That is a brilliant question. I feel myself feeling the need to open up a little bit of beverage to fully answer that one. They say it's... Oh, no. Well, I guess we won't be having any beverage. That was almost dangerous there. Okay, there we go. So, Melissa Doppler, if you're watching, can you grab me a soda, please? One that's not going to overflow. All right, how about that? I did say the please word. All right, so that's a great question. So one of the things that I did when I made the last record, I was very conscious of trying to capture something with every solo, right? I mean, how do you actually get there? And one of the things that's happening, in addition to collecting sounds, I'm collecting guitars. The different instruments make me play different things. And that's a very key part of trying to elicit something different out of the player. When I made new instrumental, one of the things that I would do is I would just leave a track looping. even just the solo section where the solo section was going to be, so I could just was zone in. And this, I would do it, sometimes for an hour or two in the kitchen, wandering around, just I'm just like, and then I'd come in and I'd be like, and so to answer your question with gradations, one of the things that I'm actually really actively doing with this next record is I want to own the pentatonic in a way that achieves a couple of things. One is I want the people like Axlinger that came up at the same time I did. Oh, thank you so much. This one's got a little fizz thing going on. We almost had a little boo-boo there. Thank you very much, sweetheart. Greatly appreciate that. Okay, good. No disasters happening here. So the point being, I want to be able to play, like one of my, I found I don't classically journal, and I didn't have, a journal. But I had this little book that my mom had given me when I was a kid. And in there are the notes from my 7th grade band, which, I was really painfully difficult to listen to then. But it was a list of songs, and on there is Freebird. And I'm answering your question. In listening to the way those guys play the pentatonic, I'm like, I want to own that. I want to play the pentatonic such that hopefully, my goal is when you hear it, you're like, oh, that dude is spanking the pentatonic. And I'm taking you back to 1970 something where you're like, that's some authentic stuff. It's kind of like, soul food. Like when you go to Everett and Jones or whatever the heck that place is on Telegraph there, it's just like, smoky. It's like when you bite into those ribs, you got some flavor on those bones. And I want to give people an experience where they kind of go, you took me home. Like that is a special thing. And it's one of the things I love about Joe Bonamassa's playing. He's got a take me home kind of vibe. So Bonamassa, but also, again, Schenker. Like the way that guy plays the pentatonic, I'm just like, okay. I want people to respond to whatever it is that I play in a way that it takes them on that journey. So, in a sense, and Satriani said this at one of the camps, is like about playing the blues. You're supposed to get into the club and be cool. You got to play a set group of licks with a set approach and set rhythm that it sounds like the accepted group of riffs, but somehow you've got to also then make them a little bit your own. It's a strange little dichotomy of that. But yet very clearly there are some very specific riffs you got to play. Same thing with the Hendrix thing, right? So the thing is that I'm trying to craft that thing where, you know what, I played it in a way that it felt like me taking somebody back to that place. That maybe they never even went on their own. Maybe they weren't alive, when those records were, I found the 45 for Black Betty. Like that whole vibe. And she's a roller, right? Like, April Wine from Canada, right? So I'm collecting thoughts, and I'm listening to the way those guys played, because in the 70s, they were not messing around. It may not have been Yngwie, but there was some serious guitar playing. I'm like, I want to take people back, but I do not want it to sound like a bad imitation. So it's collecting all the things about the people. What can I take from Joe? Like there's some things that I'm doing with open strings that I'm like, okay, this is in the Joe realm, but I'm going to play it like only I would play it. And then there's this other thing that I did on the Morello Strat where I'm doing this thing with octaves and delay, and it sounds like that thing Eddie did with Dancing in the Streets. I'm just like, what the heck? And I'm just like, okay, that... And it's what happened when I went into making Ground Zero is I had a number of cassettes, and I went back and listened to stuff that I did. I went, that's uniquely mine. Lincoln Brewster, who was on here last week, is a friend that I've known for a long time. And one of the things he talked about, and we were going to talk about it last week, but we didn't, is that, first of all, he toured with this guy, Steve Perry. Journey, right? So Lincoln, as he was developing his vocal style, would just sing a bunch and always record it and then listen back. That's why, by the way, the question that Drew had about streaming, basically what I do every time I stream is I go back and that's why I do I'm going to solo for an hour. My test is, do I repeat myself? In the early ones, I kind of went, I keep going back to the root position on the high E string of the pentatonic. I'm like, okay, thou shalt not repeat that thing. So I kind of just like, no, 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 no. And so now I'm kind of at the point, more or less, I can go for about an hour where I'm not really regurgitating anything. That's a test. The other thing is that I'm testing my nerves. It's totally intimidating to just hop out here and know that Larry Mitchell might just hop on, or might just hop on, Sir Richard. People who can actually hear a real guitar player and know kind of when they're doing it and when they're not, and when it's not happening. There's nothing like being live. It's like, I remember when the iPhone first came out, and people were very conscious about the fact that, like, you're filming somebody for 2 minutes out of a 60-minute show, and is it the 2 minutes that sucks, and that's what ends up on the web and gets shared? It's just like that. That is a very confronting thing as a guitar player. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's learning to kind of get that thick skin thing. Same thing, with the great streaming. There's always something going wrong. There's just there is no show that doesn't have some thing. But after a while, you just kind of get used to it. It's just kind of like being a touring musician. I always have a hot swap, a backable guitar. I always have a second amp. I'm expecting something to go wrong. I don't know what it's going to be, but when it goes wrong, I'm like, oh, that was it, right? That thick skin. Getting back to this original thing. A great analogy about an approach to that is just sitting there and taking the solo section and cutting and pasting it ad nauseum. Now, this is one of the things I'm actually doing. I'm really glad you asked that with Ecamm Live. So Ecamm Live, in addition to being a streaming application, has a record mode. So what I do now is I just put it in record mode and I record me jamming over or creating these different things that I'm creating progressions. So I have the video so I can actually see what I'm doing, and I've got the audio that's married with that. And that is a tool that I'm just like, oh. And I'm also using it to shoot my videos now. So the point being is that as a documentation vehicle, and also now I'm just going to sit there and I'm going to play with it, then you know that as you massage an idea, instead of actually it being in actual kind of record mode in Pro Tools, you're just capturing it in video. You can go back and kind of go, I was about, X number of minutes into this thing. Let me see what I did there. Like, oh, there's something there. Now, arguably, you should always be like, I'm doing the final take. This is the deal. Well, sometimes I just want to be like, I want to have the freedom to just kind of go, what haven't I done? And so, when there are times when I'm streaming, what I'm trying to do is stay as improvisationally intelligent as I possibly can. That's a different headspace than I just want to kind of try some stuff. Trying some stuff is the difference between practice and performance, right? And I'm actually making music, but I'm also wanting to do something that I'm trying to find something I haven't done before, which is one of the things I love to do in the improvisational space. But I'm also chasing something that I haven't bumped into. So I'm like, I don't know what it is that I'm looking for, but I know that I'm looking for it. So to answer your question, that sort of exploratory preparation gets you used to going into a space where you're inclined not to play a solo out of repetition, but out of recognition of something new, and then kind of grabbing a hold of that. Now, that gets us to the David Gilmour factor. Rumor has it that the solo of Comfortably Numb was David just kind of taking a bunch of takes and then memorizing the bits and pieces that made sense and crafting a solo and then playing that head to toe. I don't know if that's fact. I have not met David Gilmour, and if I were, I might not ask him that question, although I would be inclined. And he might just look at me. He's like, mate, you're daft. But the point being is there are times where you come up with something you're kind of like, you know what? I've kind of written something here. I can deal with replaying that. And I think there's no shame in that because I've done it and I haven't felt any shame about it. Like sometimes it's okay to just kind of come up with something you're like, oh, I like that. What I don't want to do is I don't want to live there. I want to be able to, as you pointed out, it's like the original thing ideally is you do something that you haven't done before that doesn't sound dreadfully like anything you've done before or anybody else, stuff that other people haven't done before, but at the same time isn't so unlistenable that people have to plug their ears. And so, in so doing, what are the things that I'm listening for? I'm listening for time. I'm listening for intonation, both on individual notes and vibrato and bet notes and whammy bar. I'm listening for pacing. There's timing where, I like to be leaning back a little bit, but then there's the pacing. Does it feel like I'm running after something, which sometimes I do, like when I'm doing like thing up and down the G string, like that's me, and all of a sudden I'll make a little stupid fish. But then there are other times I want to be hanging out waiting for it to happen. So the point being is, where am I in terms of the pacing? Am I trying to push it too hard? Does it feel like does it feel like I'm working too hard for it? Because usually that's not going to be a solo that's going to feel great to listen back to the next day. And that's ultimately the thing. It's like, what happens when you... one of the other things is like, what does it sound like on my phone? The little riff that I played that kind of was in the announcement, video about, I put on a record. There's little bits of intonation about that. I'm just like, ooh, it's just little tiny, 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 out a little bit here, out a little bit there. But I was like, you know what? I can live with it. And intonation's a big deal to me. So the point being is that it wasn't me purposely trying to make it sloppy or not there, but the intonation thing is really important for people, especially who are very intonation sensitive. You don't want them to kind of go, "Oh, it's nice, but the dude's just out of tune." That's not what we really want to do. So approach to laying down an original solo, I think that gets to it. The streaming part is a huge preparation for being in a zone where, like, I don't know what I'm going to play 3 minutes from now. Let me say that again. I don't know what I'm going to play 3 minutes from now. And I can tell you as a guitar player, I lived in that zone when I was 17, and I try and spend as much time in that zone now. But in the majority of the time that I played guitar, that wasn't where I lived. It's totally lame. Drew, Peter, I've been teaching online lessons since 317. Let's see here. Somebody, was it Drew? Hang on a second. That asked about lessons or teaching lessons. Do me a favor. Whoever it was that had a question about lessons, drop me some question marks about lessons. Should we be on Spotify? There we go. That's a great question. I'm on Spotify, but I didn't have anything to do with it. Yeah, you should be. Why? Because if you don't have a YouTube video or a channel that people can search for you either by the name of the channel or your name, where's the next place they're going to go look for you? There you go. Maybe, all right, Apple Music, maybe, but Spotify would be it. And honestly, I'm not super Spotify literate. I find there are things that I don't like about Spotify. And, the interesting thing is that I kind of tolerate Apple Music. I hate the fact that I can only have X number of my Apple computers logged into Apple Music. I'm just like, really, guys? Really? Like, thousands of dollars for the computer, and you can't let me flip and share it between my 4 computers? Like, you guys have a problem. Now, it may be the licensing agreement that they made with the record companies, or they just may be like, well, we're just going to go over and hide our money in Ireland and not pay taxes, but we're going to tax you if you want to actually have access to your songs. That stuff pisses me off. That's just lame. It's criminal. You want to talk about criminal? What they do with their taxes is criminal. Flipping criminal. Don't even get me started. I love my apples, but don't get me started. Tidal. Haven't used it. I should. All right. All right. Oh, wait. Hold on a second. Somebody mentioned fluff. All right. So there we go. So here's another thing. Hey, James, what's going on? So I will talk about Ryan Fluff Bruce, one of my favorite people. He came to the Tom Morello guitar camp as a teacher and provider of much brilliance. I adore Fluff. He's one of my favorite people. His band, Dragged Under, is phenomenal. Their record is unreal. They've already got like 1 million streams. Okay, great sequitur to all of this. When you can say we've got 1 million streams, and X number of those are on Spotify, you're saying you've taken the checkbox for relevant and gone, yep, we're there. Relevant is super, super, super important. So here's the deal. I'm 50. I don't even know something 50 something or other. Like, I don't like counting after 50. I didn't really like counting after 30. Really don't like counting after 50. But the point being is I am absolutely... Okay, hang on. Let me back up a step. Getting back to the previous question about, playing the pentatonic, or my response about playing the pentatonic in a way that was taking people somewhere. One of the great things about being a little bit older is I can actually go back to that first record. If there were a record that I were going to remake, I wouldn't remake New Instrumental. That was, okay. Why are you making a record? Which record are you making because of that? And will you regret it later? When I made Ground Zero, I'm pretty much this happy kind of, I want to smile, I listen to stupid pop music, you have no idea. But the point is, I love happy music. And that's a really happy record. And the tracks that aren't as happy on it, the kind of Valley of the Moon, it just like wasn't my best. And that was the track that I was thinking about dumping. I'm like, you know what? I want to kick that out of there. I'm going to re-release it, put it up on iTunes, and Spotify. And I'm going to delete that. And then somebody just left them out. Oh, I love that record. I really love Valley of the Moon. I'm like, staying, But the point being is that is the record that I would go back and make because there was an excitement and a youthful exuberation about it that I love. New Instrumental was me just kind of going, I'm going to make a record that takes what I do with instrumental music and make it a modern record. I'm going to kind of reinvent myself. And that's part of what I do. But it was a reaction record, emotional. A lot of it's heavy. You could speed the car really well with that. Get pulled over, woo woo. But Ground Zero has had way greater legs with people in terms of standing the test of time because it wasn't a reaction. It was a statement that just came from the very center of this business right here. So the point being is that when you go to make that statement, that's why I'm so excited about making a record now. It's like now I'm going to say, I get a chance to go back and kind of revisit Ground Zero and kind of go, I want to make a record that feels as good for listeners to listen to as that record does for me. And then I also want to be able to then just spank the guitar like I didn't on either of those two records. Here's one of the important things is there was a period of time where I just, I kind of was coasting as a guitar player. And you've heard me talk about it potentially at the Petrucci camp. I went in and was like, you know what? I'm just doing the same stuff, teaching the same stuff. I'm like, that's lame. And I just kind of went, I'm done being that guy. I'm done being the, I've got my core curriculum and, I'm just like, that's just crap. And it's selling people short that are paying an awful lot of money for me to bring something better than, well, this is what I've done in the past. Now, ironically, I'm talking about revisiting the past, but the point being is I want to make a record where people go, I can hear he's making a nod to where he's been. Because honestly, I want to make a record that people that loved music in the 70s and 80s and 90s and now, but especially they can kind of go back going like, that really hits home. I want to take people home. And really just there's a comfort about hearing something. It's one of the reasons people love the blues. It kind of takes them home, right? And in so doing, take people on that journey with me. And that's, I don't want to impress people with the guitar playing. Yes, I'm going to make a point that the guitar playing will have a certain spank factor. That's important. That's part of the brand. Like, there's a video that somebody shot at, I don't know, it was the Vi camp, I think, a couple of summers ago. And I'm just destroying this poor little strat. Just like, that's part of the brand. That's part of the trademark, right? But identifying what the things that are going to be part of that trademark as you go to create your signature solos, as you go to play the things that you're going to do, as you're going to dig in. Do you play with the fingers? Do you play with the pick? Do you tap? Do you sweep? Do you whammy? What are the different things that you do that are little hints of the signature thing? I don't think I finished the Lincoln Brewster thing. He recorded himself. He built his vocal stylings based on the things that he went back and listened to and went, that works. Smart guy. Had a great career. All right. Oh. Ooh. All right, I'm gonna go to this one. Let's see if I can. Oh boy. Oh. All right. Well, it's in the feed. This. I'm gonna go there. Hey Drew. I have 2 brick and mortar lesson studios. They were decimated by the virus shutdowns. Might not reopen. We lost 3 employees and 100 students. I'm moving to being online as a necessity, down to 1 day a week in person. Okay. So I want to speak to that. And hopefully I'm going to say all the things that first of all, you heard me talking about the fact that I haven't lost anybody. So let me be really clear that I am acutely aware of the fact that this thing has, I can't walk in your shoes because I can't walk in your shoes. But I can only imagine how difficult that is on every level. Moving forward, I don't think the things that we knew about what to expect in a lesson business, we could never have really seen this coming, right? I am very sorry that, obviously you have worked very hard to build a foundation and a platform for 100 people to be educated through and to be able to have other teachers providing for their families, yours included. That is, I'm really glad. Okay, hang on, wait, hold on. Where is it? Okay, hold on. Where'd that come in? All right, good news. There we go. Woohoo, good news. All right. So still have 80% of your personal students. So, and then let's see. Will this allow me to select that to replace it? The studio is a different story. So here's the thing. I'm going to pull my glasses off for a second. Analogous to what happened in the San Francisco Bay Area with the .com thing and the original music scene. There are seasons just happen, right? And sometimes we just get nailed. Like I'll just say it. Grunge just murdered my career. Like grunge came out and I was like, won't be putting out another instrumental record. I mean, that was one of the reasons why there was such a big gap between Ground Zero and new instrumental. That's my part, your part. The advantage of a moment like this is it allows you, a business owner, to kind of go, what things have I depended on that I can't depend on again? And hopefully, more importantly, go, how can I take this model and maybe expand outside of being able to work just in my local geographic zone? Is there a template like this that can take what you're doing with only a 20% loss, which is a very minimal loss, and kind of go, well, how do we adopt an online approach? And maybe, here's the thing, is like a teaching studio. When I jettisoned, and here's the thing, is I will say this, the teaching studio I jettisoned was the one where I studied with Joe. And I'd kind of come and gone a couple of times. The last time I came back, I wasn't the leaseholder. So it was a different vibe. But it was still, there was an attachment to a place that I spent so many hours and literally decades of my life. But when I finally jettisoned it, I was like, I'm just teaching online. There was an initial moment where people were like, well, can't I come study with you? I'm like, in person? No, you can't. I'm only online. It's what I do. And as a music educator, I teach basically on Saturday from 9 a.m. to basically 6 p.m. And I'm booked solid. I actually am happy when somebody doesn't show up. Um, Not because I'm happy that they didn't show up, but it actually means like, huh, I can have a moment to breathe. And I work really, really hard during that time. Now, one of the great things about an online business, and I encourage you, obviously it's kind of been forced on you, so I totally feel for you, but just kind of go, all right, well, is this going to be the last pandemic we're going to have? And if not, then kind of like, well, how do I take this 20% loss? That's really minimal for like such a giant, whew, to lose 20%. You got to go, well, what could I do to actually then build that 80%? How can I replicate that? And how can I train my other teachers to do that? And then build a model off of that. And here's the thing, it's kind of like a doctor's business. Like if you notice, one of the things is that these doctors are generally really crappy business people. Like they're really lame, so they kind of put them together in groups, and they have basically admin and business management done for them, so they can do what they do great, which is be doctors. My hopefully heartfelt encouragement for you is kind of like, you know what? Um, when you got lemons, you make lemonade. But the thing is, lemonade's pretty awesome. So I really hope that in the midst of all this, and I'm really glad, again, you just lost 20%. What you can do to kind of go, okay, well, what are the things that I couldn't do with a regular studio? What can I do with tracks? What can I do with what other things can I show people about doing? And maybe I get a group of students together to do a group class, that, all of a sudden, and it's one of the things that I've toyed with is kind of like, well, there's a bunch of people that if I did kind of like a Pro Tools 101, hang with Doppler, get 5 or 10 students together, I think I could I could charge enough money that I would probably make a couple $100 an hour. I'm not in there yet, just because I haven't given myself permission to do that, but I'm getting closer to it, and I think people would get an awful lot out of it, and that's the most important thing. So I hope that word of encouragement is encouraging. Okay, all right, all right. I see my buddy Jam in there. 200 plus students in the studios, 15 years. Wow. You know what? I think you've got a recipe, Drew, there, a recipe for the next version of your business that is corona slash epidemic proof and can be better. Oh, Gem, one of my favoritist. Okay. Oh, by the way, Mike Mitchell, I saw you jump in there. There we go. Speaking of students, how you doing, my friend? Great to see you. In case you can't see it on my face, I have a fond affection for students past and present. Done so much to define the quality of my life, I can't put it into words. All right. Gem. All right. Oh, boy. Uh, how can young people in the music business thrive in the age of 2020? Well, considering you've already sold 1,000 Helix downloads, and considering that, let's see, the video you had the other day, there's RJ Ronquillo floating around in the background, and you're jamming with folks. It's an interesting thing. It's a great question, so I'm gonna do my best to answer that. I'm not a young person in 2020, but I'm young at heart. And I think one of the reasons that you and I relate to each other as we do is like I have a childlike excitement about pretty much everything that I do. That I'm more excited about making music and doing demos and streaming and doing these things than I've ever been. And so that enthusiasm, bridled with the type of work ethic that you've got, is about then doing a couple of key things. Taking the glasses off again. One of the things that I'm trying to do with my own career is I'm trying to go, and every so often I have to sit myself down. And the reason I wanted to do this talk tonight is I have, those files, there's a level of clarity that a week or two from now, my perspective will have shifted, and the clarity that I've got around that stuff will, sometimes clarity is just a moment, right? So the thing is that the work ethic is one thing, but having the vision for where you want to be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and 5 years down the road allows you to flip that script and go, well, then what are the things, what does that pathway potentially look like? And what steps do I need to do today? And that in and of itself is one of the most valuable things that I've learned as I've gotten older, because one of the dangers about the range of interests that I've got and the amount of hunger that I've got to excel at all the things that I'm passionate about, I can work myself to the bone. And so this past Sunday, I'm horizontal. But when I'm horizontal, I've got YouTube on and I'm watching training videos on Ecamm Live and how to do presentations. But the point being is that there are times when I just need to power down. And for the first time, I said to my wife, Melissa, the other day, I said, I think I want to work a little less hard than I am right now. I want to be just as passionate, but I want to hold back just a little bit such that I don't reach the point of exhaustion. That said, Jim, that kind of like, okay, well, if I want to be here, what are the things that I need to do today that would be the logical, building blocks for the stepping stones to that? Again, flipping that around. So, it means kind of going, okay, well, I'll go first person because that's all I can do. And again, tonight, what I've tried to do is go first person, but with the perspective of like serving you in whatever it is that you're chasing. So for me, like you, I want to, first of all, back in the day, and I'm going to let the veil down here. Back in the day, I was one of the first YouTube guitar players to have 1 million views on videos that I'd done. Because I have not been persistent in my approach to YouTube, some videos get 5,000, some get 100. It's just like I have not done what I know that I need to do, and I don't have the benefit of riding Oranges or Gretches or Ernie Ball's coattails in the way that I did back in the kind of the heyday of that moment. But I know what I need to do, and that's just like video or 2 or 3 a week on YouTube. Share them on Facebook. Top of my list, I want to be one of the first 5 guys you think of. Obviously, I can't be one of the first 5 gals you think of, but guys and gals you think of when you think of IRs and modeling. And I believe in the next 12 months, I'll accomplish that goal. With a lot of hard work, but very persistence and a game plan and a series of steps that are taking that script and working it in reverse. I also want to have an album that people kind of go, that was a really fun record. You took me somewhere, and there was some technical playing, but it didn't feel like you were waiting for the solo. You were just kind of like, the whole thing just kind of moved me. Want to make a record that, and honestly, I want to have the opportunity to make the record that I want to make the way I want to make it. And in so doing, the people that are into it, they're going to see how serious I am about making that record, which is going to be both really serious, but really way more fun than just serious. That allows me to, again, as a vertical, step into the artist version of who Doug Doppler is. That means that people no longer just see me as, well, he's the guy who put out a couple of records, but he's a good teacher. He teaches at the Vi Satriani Petrucci camps. This is cool. All of a sudden, it's like, hear Doug's new records. Like, it's really good. It allows me to do that. It allows me to then get into the course curriculum side of things. Diatonic theory and harmony. Melissa always gives me a little bit of a hard time, but I want to say it because it's relevant to this conversation. Grossed into the multiple 6 figures. Like, we did really well. I shot it in 2 flipping days. Like, I couldn't shoot that in 2 days now. But with Ecamm Live, which is what I shoot directly into, I'm honing my skills to where I could shoot a better one in 5 days. But simply because that was curriculum that was already there. I am an over inventor, and so the next mode things that I'm going to do, I'm probably going to do a 101, 201, and a 301. And then there's going to be a bunch of crazy mode changing stuff that is going to allow people to sink their teeth into. It's going to have, all sorts of stuff. Then there's the presets. I have a, first of all, line 6, a very strong relationship there. I have an ongoing invitation to become one of their marketplace providers. And so it's not only going to be the presets, I'll tell you now, because I'm actually crafting the sounds now. It's presets, backing tracks, and a couple of licks to go along with it. So like, hey, try this and try that and try this and try that, such as helping people be able to jam along with an idea, be able to have all the tones that were involved in it, have the raw tracks if they want to, raw tracks with the rhythm guitar, and basically be able to develop their musical skills rather than just buying a preset. Again, I'm a music educator. I can't help but just kind of go, how can I help people get better in what they're doing in the process of this, especially when I'm getting paid. The other thing is that we tomorrow have a phone meeting with, I hosted the 2 House of Worship webinars for NAMM. We are working on a second event with a famous manufacturer. And then tomorrow I have a phone call with a famous guitar manufacturer about hosting, and it's already been agreed to, so it's happening, a webinar for them. And then there is another company that I'm doing this. So this host demonstrator thing, like last week's thing with the Fender guys, was really kind of the dry run of how you do the information side of it, although that was a little bit of kind of like an interview thing with Lincoln and the Fender guys. But it's also, here's the demos coming in. And that format is something that I'm very conscious about crafting, and it's going to be kind of the host, but in the format of like you're learning about this particular piece of gear. And that particular thing where a bunch of people's YouTubes exploded over the course of this pandemic thing, honestly, God just kind of went, I want you doing this. And so I was just obedient. And I've worked really, 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 really hard. So to you, Jim, the point being is that, most of the things I just talked about doing are things that I already know you're actively doing. The difference is that you're doing it with a degree of consistency that is inspirational. So, and your website looks great. So, you're a guy that was in Nashville, is back in Australia, and the advice that I have for you is this. It's just like, everything that I unpacked tonight, stepping stones. You have to have the faith that you're going to do your part and God's going to do his part, which means then you just need to focus on, what do I need to practice? What do I need to do? How often do I need to post? And if you don't, because I think in your excitement to have a moment, I think you could actually manage the moment in ways that, because you're young and have this exuberance, this isn't a put down. I watch what you do and I'm like, this kid's going to do just great. So the point being is that, I'm talking to the 20-something-year-old Doug Doppler that was teaching down the street from Alex Skolnick, who was famous from Testament, had studied with Joe Satriani, hung out with Steve Vai, and nobody knew who I was. I remember that feeling. I flippin' hated it. And that was one of the reasons Ground Zero was such an important record to me. I'm just like, that's one of the reasons I worked so hard on the Tower Records and the consignments and all of that stuff. I was just like, I can't live arguably where you're living, right? So I feel you. But you need to make a record, for one, such that you're not the sideman touring with Cade, the American Idol, finalist. You're Jim putting out your own record, making your own stamp, the first of many records. And that is going to allow you to step into your own ownership of your career. Because I tell you, if I were you in Sydney there, where, those Nashville times, are, I'm just going to put it this way. you're in a place where God wants you to be. So my suggestion to you is make a quick list of what it is that God's trying to get you to focus on while you're there. And I'm not saying that you don't, but sometimes we're so busy down in the valley looking at the mountaintop going, I just want to be there, that we just kind of go, yeah, but you got to learn this, and this before you get a chance to take the roller coaster up. That's the way it works. And I know that you know that, but sometimes in our excitement to get to the mountaintop and that peak experience, we miss those fundamental foundational lessons that are not only going to prepare us for that mountaintop, but the next valley and the next mountaintop. And we've had this conversation about valleys and mountaintops many times now. But the point being is that understanding is like it's going to be up and down. I will say this to everybody that's watching this. Every gig ends. Singular exception is U2. And aside from that, every band I can think of, it's not the original members, somebody gone. They all end. All the guys that I knew that had these giant sideman gigs, eventually, think about all the people that you know. Think about, the famous instrumental guitar players. The musicians come and go. It's a cyclical thing. The thing that I've learned, I'm 25 years into this thing, is that I just work really hard. I've been totally blessed. I've been faithful with what's been given me. I treated people well. I was honest, and I worked really hard. But the thing is that I think it's really impossible to kind of see the thing that's in front of you that you haven't yet stepped into. But sometimes you can, listen to that still small voice and kind of going, I'm being prompted to go there. And you go, okay, what's the heavy lifting I need to do to go there? So here's the thing. So you have youth, my friend. By the time you're my age, I'm going to be old, dude. Like, I'm in my 50s. The youth thing, you're going to turn around and you're going to be 30 and you're going to be like, what happened? It's unbelievable. So, flip that script, go 5 years from now, you want to be doing what? Then what do I need to do today, tomorrow, and the day after to be in that place? And you may not end up in anything that looks like that place, but because you went, I'm going to do this, this, and this because it's going to set me towards that thing that I think I'm supposed to be going towards, it will send you in the right direction. And I have no doubt, my friend. Oh, look at you. Hold on. There we go. And I'm really glad you're being honest enough to ask this. And is a successful music career in business still possible in this day and age for young people? Dude, honestly, with the amount of get up and go, as much as I kind of give you, hey, blah, 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 the amount of get up and go I see you have, it inspires me. I'm just kind of like, this kid's hungry, but not obnoxious. Like, there are people that are hungry and obnoxious. There's a guy that gave me a signed photo at some gig where they were opening up for me. And I'm just like, what's wrong with you? I was just like, seriously? It was just one of those moments where I was just like, just bizarre. You're hungry. But here's the thing. It's going to come to you. You got to do the work, but it's going to come to you. It's just going to come to you. It's just going to happen. It's just going to be like that. I just know it. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen without the work, but it's going to come to you. All right. Let me just jump out to Drew again. Doug, I'm rethinking everything. Huge. My home studio is now really pimped out. Woohoo! Teaching Monday through Wednesday online, focusing on my album, recording artists, YouTube videos, live shows. That is what I'm talking about. And here's the thing: is like, honestly, I feel guilty for saying it, but I'm going to say it. For me personally, the pandemic is the best thing that's ever happened to my career. It allowed me to just kind of go. It just. I don't know. It was just kind of like it was kind of like a slap in the face of a different reality. I went, we're in a different time here. And, and in the next month, I'm going to get a chance to announce the companies that I'm doing these kind of the webinar hosting things with. And that's been what this season has taught me. I recognized, and again, Jim, this is exactly, speaking of what you're talking about, I recognized the opportunity that was in front of me. I was like, I could smell. I don't exactly know how I'm going to get there. The early streaming shows were, between hanging up on Joe Satriani, he dialed back in on Skype, but I mean, like, streaming windows opening up, audio loops and all of that. It's just like, I jumped in head first, which is pretty Doug. And, I have attempted to cobble together, pieces of technology that were not designed to be cobbled together. Using Zoom as an input source to stream into some sort of web streaming software. It's just like, they were never designed to do that. And they don't do it particularly well. But I've learned most of the hacks that enable me to do what it is that I need to do. And in so doing, I've also kind of gotten to know the folks behind the scenes because they were guests here at Ecamm Live. And that is a very powerful relationship because when the rest of the world wakes up and realizes that you can not only use this application to stream, but also you shoot all your videos into it in 4K, it's going to revolutionize what musicians do. Revolutionize it. Crazy, 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 crazy. Okay, here we go. There we go. Okay, hang on. So let me just get to... okay, so... True, again, managing 15 employees is really hard. I'm trying to rethink it. Find somebody to manage them for you, but just like, here's the rules, this is what's expected. Do it or don't, right? But if you're not a management type, which maybe you're not, and that's okay, find somebody else to do it for you. So it's that's easy. All right, Melissa in here. Peter Davidek wants to know, there we go. Online teaching set up. All right, that's a great question. So let's see if I can, let me walk you through this. Zoom, 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 and more Zoom. Now, I do have to say that, gosh, terrible with last names. Oh, come on. Oh, the greatest little Zoom hack ever. Where are you? Oh, you're up here. Okay. Mike. Oh, I'm going to forget his last name. In any case, show me the number one hack you need to know about Zoom. Zoom is amazing as an online teaching vehicle. The only thing you got to be aware is every so often they change stuff up a little bit. And sometime this month, they're going to make it so that every room has to have its own unique password. Password was optional. It's about to become mandatory, which means if you've got preset rooms for people that don't have passwords, they're not going to be able to get in. So aside from stuff changing a little bit, which means at the 10,000 foot view, Zoom is great for video and audio and making it super easy for basically anybody to jump in because everybody pretty much at this point has used Zoom. Number 4, if you know how to get inside Zoom and do a little bit of stuff, you can actually get some great audio, and I'm going to show you the hack now. This is the deal. So let me get Zoom open. And Zoom is opening here, but basically, so long as you've got a good audio input source, whether it's a USB microphone or your DAW or whatever, the key with Zoom. Why are you not launching? What? There we go. All right, give me a moment. All right, I'm going to show you the kind of the key stuff you need to do, and hopefully opening this application. Oh, all right. Hold on. All right, give me just a moment. We may get an echo for just a second because I think I've got Zoom piping through. So hold on. I'm going to mute this mic here. I'm going to try one other thing real quick. Hang on a second. Okay, good. That should get us there. All right. So here's the deal: as I am in Zoom now, and what you're seeing is, let me just go back here, and I'm going to take you into Zoom. No, I'm not taking you there. I'm taking you into Zoom US, and I'm taking you into the Zoom meeting. Oh, no, no, you moron. Right, no, that's an echo there. All right. Oh, snap. Right. All right, hold on. All right, no, I've got this. I've got this dialed remotely. All right, so I'm not going to be able to show you myself because it's going to echo like you saw that. In theory, if you saw me in Zoom, it's going to. Oh, no. I'm not going to be able to do what I want to do. But basically, I'm able to use a virtual webcam. I'm not going to go into that business. So I'm going to bring this in. We're going to share the desktop. And we're going to be over here in Zoom, and I'm going to bring you over into this menu here. Okay, so let's see if we can do this. And we may get a little bit of virtual... Oh, let me try doing this. All right, we may get some echo here or not. Video echo. Okay, not. All right, so what we've got here... well, let me get rid of this little guy down here. There we go. All right. So what we've got here is this little microphone menu here. If you go into there and go into audio settings, and let me make sure that that's tracking through. It's not. So hang on a second. Let me go back into the application here and go into Zoom and go into settings. So now you're going to see that window that just popped up there. In the audio settings tab down in the lower right hand side, there's an advanced button. And that allows you to select or deselect this very important button. It says show in meeting option to enable original sound from microphone. You want that selected, okay? And then in terms of these guys, you just want suppress persistent background noise to disabled, suppress intermittent background noise to disabled, echo cancellation to automatic. I'm going to close out of here, and I'm going to go back into Zoom now, Zoom meeting. Okay, now, no, hold on, how about, oh, yeah, right, it's echoing that, hang on. Yeah, I knew I was going to get a digital echo there. In any case, when we're now up here, you're going to see this bizarre echo, but up here where the mouse is, you see this little menu now. What we just did was turn on the option to turn that, either turn off original sound or turn it on. And basically, you want it so it says turn off original sound. All right, so the dealio with that is that basically it means it's not looking at your guitar, and if you think about a guitar, it's got echo on it. It's hearing that as background noise. It's going, no. And so it's actually getting rid of that. That's why you'll play for 2 beats, and it's great, and all of a sudden the level just disappears to nothing because it's hearing your guitar as background noise. And it's actually trying to eliminate it, just as if there was music in the background while somebody's trying to have a Zoom meeting. So the point being is when you set it to that setting there, and every time you open up Zoom, you have to re-click that. It just automatically goes to that. But that little process that I showed where you go into the audio menu there enables you to at least have that tab visible, such as in there. All right, so that means that if you've got some sort of DAW or some sort of mixer with a USB connection or a Helix, you've got great sound going directly into Zoom. Zoom is awesome for that. So, oh, Peter, with pleasure. So then the other hack that I'm doing is that basically Ecamm Live enables me to set up basically what's called a virtual webcam. Now, the hack that I'm doing here that is their standard fare is my 2 cameras are, I've got 3 cameras. I've got an EOS R, which is my new expensive bad boy, and then I also had, from years past, 2 7Ds. The original 7Ds that when we started shooting the stuff for Orange, I bought one, and I ended up with a second one. They're now about $200 or $300, give or take, but one of them's got a $1,500 lens from back in the day, and the other one, it's got like a $400 lens, and I've been buying glass. I'm excited about buying lenses, and I generally buy Canon lenses, but the one you're looking at me is a 18 through 50, which is a great range, by the way, for this sort of thing. That's a oh, what the heck are you? That's a good lens. I'll remember the name in a minute. But it's not a Canon. And generally speaking, I'm buying the Canon glass these days. All right. So the point being, there's a function where I just come out of the USB micro into a USB input on the computer, and then Ecamm Live enables you to use a virtual webcam. And I'm basically using my 7D into Ecamm, and then I'm using the virtual camera function in Ecamm as a virtual webcam inside Zoom. So I have like my favorite lenses and cameras, and boom, I'm good to go. And if I wanted to, I can choose between the different cameras, where are you? There we go. I can add that one to that, such that I've got all this stuff there. I can go to just that one there, or I can add it back in. I can go to that. I can set up scenes. So I can do all sorts of cool things that, honestly, Zoom it's a web conferencing software. It's exceptionally better than what it should be. And the audio fidelity, when you get it right, is phenomenal. Seriously, I'm just sounds great. It sounds great. But you've got to get it such that you're not letting it kind of do its little compressing thing on it, because that's where it gets le poo-poo. Okay. Oh, Jem's back. All right. So I use that. I schedule everything in Google Calendar, and then I also use Google Docs to share. In the first lesson, I just kind of go, hey, what are your goals, this and that, and then I kind of go back and forth. I'm not always super faithful with it, but what I do is I kind of, if there's some notes that I want written, I'll put them in there. The thing that I do, though, is at the end of the lesson, well, actually, no, I should say this. At the beginning of the lesson, many of my students want to record the whole lesson. So in Zoom, I have to make them a co-host, but I let them record the whole lesson. It's great. So they have the benefit of anything they want to rewatch, I'm watching in there. And if there's some little written material thing that I go to, pull up the PDF or whatever, I can do that. Usually I won't use the screen sharing function in Zoom. I'll do it from within Ecamm Live, but it just makes it so I can do this whole round trip really easily. And then I kind of store the meeting address, and I have a unique meeting room for each student. I store that in the Google Calendar, and I set it as a recurring event. And all that stuff plays together really nicely. Works really well. And I've moved over generally to my new students I'm having use Venmo as opposed to PayPal, but I'm PayPal and Venmo, and it works really, really, really well. Go get him, Peter Davidak, my dear friend. Own that. All right, Jem, I love it. Is it harder to be in the music business today than when it was back when you started to get in the music business? No, it's way easier. It's way easier. What we were able to do with that first record, there were, how do I say this? There were thousands of dudes with long hair who played a lot of notes that thought they were going to be the next Joe Satriani. And that's just in San Francisco alone. There was a ridiculous amount of competition, and there weren't an awful lot of slots. And, we just had a lot of hard work and a lot of really great opportunities. But honestly, people have been really good to me. And I think part of it is that people just understand that I appreciate the opportunities I've been given. Nobody wants to help somebody that's just an ungrateful so-and-so. But people understood that, when my buddy Jimmy at the Omni and the Stone set us up with good gigs, I always let him know how thankful I was. And he always knew how thankful I was. And, I didn't think that I deserved any of it. I was just as happy to work just as hard as anybody else. I'd say now, look at how many people know you. What was that video you put up with RJ, the other day? It's like 2,500 views, and I'm just like, look at that. Here's the thing. You can measure things in metrics, right? So what's really neat is like I have in this moment much better metrics on Facebook than I do on YouTube because I've studied with this guy Sean Cannell. I know what I need to do on YouTube, and I'm about to do it. And it's just like regular videos, but also being smart about the content that I put out. The other thing is that knowing about, because I'm the editorial director of Worship Musician, and I've got this mainstream thing that I do. I've been very uniquely positioned to have a ridiculous amount of access to gear. But honestly, Jem, as you kind of play your gig forward, you're going to have those same sorts of opportunities too, because you can play funk, you can play country, you can play blues, and you can play those styles better than I could when I was your age, if I were brutally honest. So the difference is like people know who you are all over the world, dude. I mean, it's like seriously, like world famous. Maybe not as world famous as you might want to be, but like you have been totally blessed with the pandemic, dude. You couldn't have found a better time to be back in Australia, just kind of going, now what? Just like it's you're right where you're supposed to be. And that's the hard part. I think sometimes about being young and being hungry. Is it harder to be in the music business today? No, because you have so many more opportunities because of technology. You can invent yourself in a way that, like, I couldn't get arrested. It was so frustrating being down the street teaching from Alex Skolnick, who I love dearly. And it wasn't, any fault of Alex's. This is like, he's the guy that, at that point he was out of Testament, just kind of doing his thing. But like, people had a reverence for him because he had achieved things with his career. And I was basically just a guy that, inherited Joe Satriani's teaching studio. It's not that, it's a great story, but that wasn't much of a story. And your ability to craft a story on a worldwide level is what you're doing. The website was a really smart move. The presets was a really smart move. You just keep making smart moves. You kind of prove the point. I had to work way harder, and look at in this moment, look at the impact that you're having, and look at the impact that I'm having, and you go, is it harder or is it easier? And I'm not giving you the pulling over my knee and giving you a spanking. I totally understand why you feel exactly like you do. It's to have been in the epicenter of the music business and then to be back in Sydney, like honestly, being in Australia, is a hard thing. I can name on two hands all the famous bands that have really been huge out of Australia. In the United States, it's a bazillion, right? But it gets back to my point before. Is unlike when you used to have to go to New York or Los Angeles or almost said a city that there might be somebody on this from, that I started to turn my lip up and it was like, you get wise when you get older, hopefully. The point being is you don't have to be in a place. That's kind of the thing that I think that I'm in the Bay Area. Like there's no club scene, there's no music scene here anymore. But I'm like, I wouldn't rather be anywhere else. I can do everything that I need to do from here, and you can do everything you need to do from there. The difference is I know you just want to be in Nashville, and I can't blame you. Because there are things that you have yet to do that probably can only be done in Nashville. So to totally contradict myself, but not. There's sometimes situationally you've got to be someplace to do those things, but the difference is there are work opportunities that are very specific to what you want to and can do that are in Nashville that aren't where you are. But the majority of what you're already doing, you don't need to be anywhere else to do it. And you're killing it. Oh, thank you, Chris. Much appreciated. Really, really, totally warms the heart. Totally. Dave Collins mastered my album. He is the best in my head. I am not familiar with Dave Collins, and I realize that's probably me being a freshman. It's been a bit of time since I last mastered a record. Awesome. Yeah, like Melissa said, I was raving about your website, Jem. I was just like, dang it. I wish I had I need to do a little tiny bit of updating because I know it doesn't have the current streams on it. But I really wanted just the one page kind of scrolly deal with the menu navigation at the top, and it just wasn't on Squarespace at the moment. Tom, thank you very much. Always a pleasure. Seriously. And yep, it's that first step. Absolutely. What's the heavy lifting I need to do? Yep. So, the great thing is just identify, like, hey, what is it that I need to be doing? It's not rocket science. Um, there you go. All right. Let's see. Let's see here. Michael Brock. There we go. And by the way, thank you. Michael, I have to give Michael credit. He's the one that showed me how to get into the audio menu and find that the menu that if it's not revealed already in Zoom, that's how you get there. So Michael, my man, thank you so much. All right. What are my thoughts on independent artists releasing and promoting singles as opposed to albums in the new paradigm of the music business? All right, let's roll up our sleeves. All right, so I have to do a little bit of a reveal here because it's where the depth of field comes in. Because nobody really wants to hear somebody talk who doesn't know what the heck they're talking about. I know that there are people on this on Doppler's Gear Garage that really don't want to hear me talk about my faith, and I'm totally cool with that. Just in the same way that if there are Satan worshipers out there, I don't particularly want to hear them talk about their faith. I get it. So the thing is that there are things that because of my positioning in the Christian music business that I have access to. Literally, there is an artist that part of my day was spent preparing a trio of social media images for basically Capital Christian Music Group that are going to get pushed out from one of their social media things and this giant worship artist, We the Kingdom, who is this kind of this Cash family, but I don't believe they're related to the other Cash family. But there's this guy, Ed Cash, who's one of the biggest producers like in Christian music. So I have an incredible proximity with in particular, Capital Christian Music Group. Very, very close relationship with worship musician, and because of the foundation that my boss, Bruce Adolph, laid there. He doesn't like me to call him my boss. The publisher. There are just incredible ties also with Gateway Worship and just incredible proximity to that. So the new model, especially in the Christian music business, single, 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 single. The album in some ways almost doesn't matter, or does it? So it's a really great question because the paradigm is like, okay, do we want to go with a single-driven thing? I'll answer first person. As I'm 99.9% positive, I'm going to drip things out in a single methodology. And I'm almost undoubtedly going to then have them available at the very end of some sort of process as an actual album. So they need to look and sound enough alike, such that basically before I mentioned about the Apollon distribution deal in Japan, they could hear that some of the songs weren't sonically the same. So it's important that there is a continuity. One of the things that happens is sometimes in the process of developing, the original idea that we started with gets orphaned. And I used to be famous for like, oh, the new song is way better than the last one. I've written so many songs at this point. I'm like, I don't think like that anymore. But it's easy over the course of a project, especially one where there's a theme or concept like what you're working on, where at a certain point you kind of have some moment of revelation where you've gone someplace that you haven't been before. And you look back on the things that you've done before and you go, there was a piece that I hadn't had yet that allowed me to have that broader perspective. It happens. It's a danger of doing things kind of like, oh, I'm going to do the singles. So the advantage of doing, dropping songs is that you can decide which ones get bundled together and which ones make it and which ones don't. Arguably, if you have the whole thing written in advance, then you're just dripping it, which makes it easy. Then you kind of go, well, then, does it make sense to release an album of complete material to drip them out? Generally speaking, what's happening, I believe, the why behind that is that the singles allow you to build some interest going into it. And it's there's one piece that I don't totally get, where basically the single comes out and you can pre-order the album. It's a little weird. But at the same time, I think people are just trying to figure out how to deal with the fact that people aren't buying albums anymore. They buy singles. So the interesting thing about that, and again, I'm going to go first person because that's the best way I can answer this. I am going to conceptually, when it all gets bundled together as an album, my belief is that album will be so strong that I'd say 60% of the people are going to be like, I want the record. And I'm going to appeal to them. It's one of the things that one of my buddies that's in the industry that's been on one of the streams here, he appreciated that. Like, you notice one of the things I don't do is for the people that are on YouTube, like, hey, and subscribe to the channel and ring the bell, and that way we can do this. And I kind of made a conscious decision that I'm not going to do that. Now, it is against all standard intelligent YouTubery, but I decided not to. And the same thing with Facebook. I'm not going, hey, don't forget to, follow me if you're not following, if you just tuned in, please, I'm just kind of like, what, if you want to follow me, to follow me. If you want to, subscribe to my channel, to subscribe to my channel. Like, people, you don't really have to hit them over the head with it, and they're so tired of hearing about it. So the point being is that I will be like, hey, you know what? This is from the upcoming album, and thanks for your support, and if you can, pick up the record. That's going to be one of the places that I am going to make an ask. And so in so doing, I think there are ways, and this is one of the clever ways that you can kind of put together some kind of non-musical thing that kind of is an edited piece. And that's, again, where something like Ecamm Live works so well, of being able to basically just kind of have high quality cameras. You just kind of set up some sort of scene and some sort of set, and you hit record, and you bring the pieces into Premiere, and you start to edit them together. And if you can blend in pieces from the album. You just go, hey, blah blah blah. Hey, this is Doug. Got a new album. You might have seen some of the singles, but it's going to be out on such and such a date. And really excited about it. And would really appreciate if you could support it. I know you can pick up singles, but if you can pick up the whole album, that would be a huge help, because that way, if you dig what you're hearing, makes it a little bit easier for me to make the next record. Thanks so much for supporting, and blah, 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 and then, play out, whatever. The point being is that there are ways you can appeal to people in that process. So I am definitely going to go with the single approach. And I'm going to definitely have a number of singles out before the album actually is in place. And I will be letting people know, and it's taking a little bit of a chance, but this is the first single. Because, it's one of the biggest mistakes people make is like, oh, I'm not ready. It's like, oh, when I'm ready, it's like, it took me, 12 years to be ready, or whatever it is, to make this record. So there's a certain amount, when you're ready, you're ready. But some folks, they procrastinate the thing. So, I don't think that's relevant in your situation, but for some folks it is. Sometimes you just gotta do your thing or get off the pot. It's just like, you just gotta get to it. And you gotta make a first record to make a second one. And that's kind of the deal. So the single thing, I'm sorry, I didn't answer that very eloquently. I think the single thing is one of the greatest things about this era, is that it gives you a chance to, put something out before the entire album is out. That's a great opportunity. It also gives you the opportunity to go, if I'm going to boost this on Facebook, or I'm going to do some sort of ads around this or promotion around this on YouTube, gives you that first single to try it out with. And that single is not, quote unquote, the album. It's one of the singles from the album. So you can begin to go, okay, now what am I going to do for the second one? And you begin to develop a strategy just in the same way we hired Concrete Marketing. If you're going to put out a record, you better be prepared to spend some money. Whether that's in Facebook stuff, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's all of the above, figuring out the way that you can promote what it is that you're doing. And having the singles to do it around that, I think is a great approach. Great approach. Great question, Michael. Thank you very much. Zoom is great. Richard Doyle, I totally agree. Love you, bro. Oh, Jem. Glad you dug it. Yeah, no. It's Zoom flipping rocks. And, the other thing is say, for example, one of your gigs, you're going to become the webinar host for, some sort of thing. Like the whole NAM thing. Those NAM webinars were done through Zoom, and I'm 99% positive I was using the virtual camera from Ecamm Live. And, we live in an exciting time, my friend. Like, technology is, once you start going with multiple cameras, my friend. Now this is the worst camera of the bunch, and I never use it, but I'm going to bring it into the shot anyway. Oh, it's not going to. There we go. Yeah, there you go. That camera sucks. You are banned. But here's the deal. This is like I keep it there. You can actually in Ecamm Live make it such that the default camera doesn't come up. But if for some reason that camera went down, hot swappable backup. The touring dog knows that Steph will go on. Jem, it's only a matter of time, and you and I will have a nice long powwow about camera stuff. Yeah, you're. There are 1, 2, 3. Oh, is that one? No, it's not piped in. So there's the jam cam. So I've been. We'll have a little private convo about that. Okay, what do you use for on-screen PDFs in Zoom lessons? Okay. Let me pull that up. Let me, in the background, get the PDF going. Let me demonstrate that. I will answer this question all day long. Doppler lesson plans. Where are you? Where the heck are you? Print format. There we go. Okay. All right. Give me half a second. I'm launching this over here. We got that guy right there. I frequently talk to myself. Cancel. Let's go to some modes. There we go. All right. So let's head over here. So what I'm doing, so one of the great things about if you use the Ecamm Live virtual camera in Zoom, okay, hang on a second. All right, hang on. Let me organize this little. Oh, Joel, you're too kind. You have no idea. All right, so let me organize my desktop here just a little bit so it doesn't look like the pigsty that it is at the moment. But hang on a second. Let me make this look a little bit better. I'm going to go into live demo mode, which I have never, ever done. Hold on a second. So where the heck is live demo mode? Live demo mode. By the way, it's a really bad idea to do what I'm in the process of doing when you're doing a live stream. You're like, oh, let's do something really unintelligent, like something we've never done before. Oh, where they? There we go. Live demo mode. Okay, now you're seeing. There you go. You're seeing all the stuff. Those are my scenes. And this is where I go between, and then me, and then the desktop. So I just basically have those set up as scenes. Basically can hotkey in between. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go into this little overlay dealio, and now I'm going to select Adobe Acrobat, and that allows me to pull this puppy up. Now, uh, since I'm using this as my virtual webcam, if I were to, I think I'm going to get an echo when I do this, but if I go over to Zoom and to my Zoom meeting, yeah, there it does. It does the echo. But the point being is basically what it's doing is that it would normally do that. What's happening is I'm piping the Acrobat through the virtual webcam in Ecamm Live into Zoom. And that means that I don't have to do the somewhat clumsy screen sharing thing in Ecamm Live. So let's say, for example, all right, we're still in live demo mode. So I'm basically going to copy this scene right here. There's these two scenes are identical. What I'm going to do is here, I'm going to take this guy over and I'm going to have it go back over to Adobe Acrobat. And there that guy is. So now what I can do is I can via hotkey, you can actually see that, Command 2, Command 3, Command 2, Command 3, I can hotkey in between the two of those. The other thing I can do is I can zoom in on that with that little plus guy. All right, let me get out of live demo mode. All right, there we go. I managed to not thing this time. Okay. But like that workflow is awesome. And it makes for a great presentation. Now, there is I tell you what, let me not rabbit trail down that thing. Let me answer some more questions here. Doug likes streak. I mean steak. That was pretty funny. That was hilarious. That's awesome. Thanks, James. All right, let's see here. All right, scrolling through here. It's a great question. Yep, zoom is off. Sigma, there you go. That's what that other lens is. Gosh dang it. Okay, there we go, Drew. Yeah, so that for the on-screen PDFs is just great. And the other thing is again, for a presentation, I don't have to do anything once I've kind of got it ready to go. Boom, right? And then if I want to, I can continue to zoom in on that. What I don't have the ability to do is drag it around inside here, but still, that's pretty darn good. And one of the things in a streaming environment, I am aware that obviously if you're looking at something on your smartphone, which is not how I work when I'm teaching lessons, right? Most people aren't on their smartphone. They may be on a tablet, which again gives you a larger field of view, if you will. Peter Davidek, with pleasure, my friend. Joel, you are way too kind, but thank you. Look at that. I'll bring you up on screen there. Thank you, my friend. Much appreciated. Let's see. What software do I use for real-time transcribing? I just basically will kind of transcribe stuff just very loosely using Tab in Google Docs, which is totally ineffectual. All right, hang on. But the triple play thing, they've revamped that a little bit, so I've gotten some new mounts for that, so I can't wait for it. Chris Stark, dude, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. I hope that serves you well in the season that you're in. What a pleasure. Always, there, here, and there. Go get him, kiddo. All right. All right. Yep, there we go. All right. Tom, you're lovely. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. The man from down under. What's going on, Doug? How you doing? Good to see you, mate. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Love that photo. Great photos. That's really important. There we go, Chad. Great question. Absolutely no idea. I can say that, first of all, thank you. I can say that what I'll do is there'll be a first single. And there will be probably a bunch of noise about it. It's probably 2 months-ish, a month out. I don't know. I've got a bunch of demo stuff that I've got to do. But thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, Michael. There we go. There we go. Here we go. It's all part of your story. Tell me about it. All right, there we go. Dave Collins, Soundgarden. All right. Yeah, just a few lists. Wow, how is it that I've never heard of this guy? I've been under a rock for 12 years. Oh, there we go. So here's part of the whole thing. So Steve Howell, one of the great things about, I remember being on tour with Gilby Clarke in England, I think before I met Steve. And I remember we kind of flew into some airport somewhere. So basically that tour was all a series of puddle jumpers. And, this also, is Michael, this is kind of one of the things that kind of, per your kind of like the kind of pay to play thing. So the talent buyer, the booking agent for the Schenker tour and the Gilby Clarke tour, those were buy-ons. I had to basically pay to be part of the tours, but the exposure and the opportunity was priceless. And I remember a certain guitar player that was also on Favored Nations. So my last record came out on Steve Vai's label, which was awesome. I was on that site the other day and I was like, oh, John Petrucci, Steve Vai, Eric Johnson, I think Alan Holdsworth, and I'm like, and Doug Doppler. No, I was just like, dang. But the point being is there was, some, and it wasn't like a groupie type thing, but there was this woman that they knew at the airport who worked at the sandwich shop, and they gave us free sandwiches. So Steve and Jackie Howell, I met at the Canyon Club on the Schenker tour. Love you, dude. And I think they got there early. I think they were the first people there, and we kind of came out and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And we've just been great friends, my wife and the Howells, and we just been friends. You meet people, and it's these experiences that you share together, right? Just what an age that we live in. It's so unbelievably cool. Headstock Hero. That's awesome. Definitely subscribed. I love it. Thanks so much. That's so funny. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. There you go. There you go, Tom. Singles help you also push catalog if you have multiple albums. Absolutely. Catalog. Nitin. Oh, look at this. Okay. Hello. Good to see you. Speaking of amazing people I know from the guitar camps. Hello. Okay, hey, Doug, Nandini in here. Is it possible for you to do a walkthrough video of one of your upcoming singles, like everything from your DAW workflow when writing and how you iterate during your composition process? What a great idea. Boy. Yes. How's that? No, and yes, I think that's a fabulous idea. Yes. Done. Thank you. Let's bring Victoria Metzger. How you doing? All right. So, obviously you can read this, but I'm going to read it aloud. If you're on a mobile device, it may be hard to read. So, from all the research we've been doing, it's not about the music so much anymore. It's about the experience you provide your fans. They want to be constantly engaged, and they want a personal experience. The more you share, the more your engagement go up. That is what gets you on playlists, Spotify, and garners more follows on social media. I'm going to agree and disagree simultaneously. If the music sucks, the vocals are out of tune, the guitars are the tone's bad. If it's a painful experience musically, it's a bad experience. Nobody wants to follow a band that sucks. Um, that said, considering everybody on this thread, of course, is amazing, then that wouldn't be an issue. But honestly, I mean, the reality is what was I listening to? Somewhere I saw something that reminded me of an early recording that I had done or something. I remember it was like, we all have painful moments, right? And arguably, we don't want to be known for our bad moments, right? So sometimes it's actually good that people. No, that's what it was. It was some photos, and it was just kind of like some. I'm like, those will never be seen in public. People will not see those. It's just kind of like some like kind of in between vibe. At a certain time. What I was wearing, the way the hair was. I'm just like, nobody's seeing that. Like, there was the fact that there was a very small audience at that particular time was a good thing. But that said, it's an interesting thing what separates musicians from non-musicians. And again, I think there's some meat on the bone of which you put forward there that I want to chew into. And I also want to provide some value for people around that. It's an interesting thing. In my decision to become an artist again, it allowed me to step into a mode where I was actively entertaining people versus being actively entertaining. I know that sounds strange, but the idea is that the point that you become a recording artist, you are in a position where people now, it makes it a lot easier to understand the relationship, the dynamic of the relationship. So speaking into the huge amounts of truth that are in there, the thing, and I'll say one of the biggest challenges that I face personally, and this goes out to Jem as well, is that because I wear so many different hats, it makes it hard for some folks to understand which person you are. We live in a day and age where I think it's easier to see the sum of the parts and kind of go, right, they do this and they do this, and they do that. In YouTube, since we're talking about followers, I'm going to be making videos about XLR to USB microphone cables, and all sorts of other technology. Arguably, somebody that wants to buy a Doug Doppler record and that doesn't play guitar has no interest in that whatsoever, right? They're like, so it means that they've subscribed to my channel for this. And then once a week, they get this. They're like, what is that? So the challenge is that making sure that you're on target with the content that people are wanting to have. Now, most artists don't have that problem. They just like, here's a new song. Thanks so much. Blah, blah, blah. We're going to be on, but the challenge is when you start to have a range of offerings that you're bringing into the marketplace. Do you start a new YouTube channel, or do you just keep rolling with the one that you do? The guy that I study YouTube with is a guy by the name of Sean Cannell. And next week on the 9th and the 10th, I believe, he's having his Grow with Video live. It's a live streaming thing that he does that would have been in person in Vegas, but it's COVID time. But if you're interested in getting your YouTube game on, just check it out. It's $97. There's 2 other tiers above that, but I will definitely around doing a streaming event that I have the privilege of doing that Thursday morning. I will be attending that with great happiness. But generally, I think Sean would probably go, hey, you know what? If they're that divergent, you probably do want to set up a separate channel. The challenge is that, when you start thinking about the number of musicians that are about to jumping in the streaming game, chances are the majority of the people that are going to follow me on YouTube are going to be musicians anyway, a bunch of whom are very curious about streaming. So there are times where you're just like, I don't know. And that just means there are going to be times that you don't know. When you're a band, it makes it really easy. And that means that, if the music is good and people resonate with it, and, there have been plenty of mediocre bands that bazillions of people love, right? So, to the point here, let me pull that back up again. I think music, first and foremost, is the thing that draws people in. I think that song that they can hum. When I come down here in the morning, I traditionally am up well before 7 a.m. And I come down and I've usually got some song that like is in my head. I have to hear that song. And I'm quite often, I'm continuously organizing and reorganizing and cleaning this place because there's just a cavernous amount of stuff in here. Um, and again, I am a musician, but for me, it's a song. But lots of meat on that bone. Lots of meat on there. Wait a second. How'd you know I've got UX90s in here? Boy, James Yellen is reading my. So wait, no, it's not in frame. So I have a pair so I have the trio of Panasonics. That camera up there, no, that's not. That's the old. That's the one before the UX90s. I have a pair of UX90s that are the Panasonic kind of camcorder at the upper edge of the prosumer market 4K camcorders, and I buy pairs of matching cameras so the colors are right. So yes, I'm big on the Panasonic stuff, but I also fell in love with that shallow depth of field that the Canons give you. I just love that. All right, Tom. Oh, the shame. The shame. What do they call it? What they call it? Flatulation, right? It's like, oi, question, Tom. I realize I'm late with this question. I hope I didn't miss it if you covered it. Did I release the share equipment list yet? No. It's good you called me out on it. I've been so naughty. I've got to put that list together. And I will. And it's just like, it's embarrassing. I every so often endeavor to do a few more things than I have hours in the day to do. But the good news is I'm refining said list. But that's just lame. Soon-ish. Just totally lame. Stu Sweatman, speaking of modal students. Good to see you, Stu. Thank you so much for joining us. Oh, that's so funny, James. I'm going to put this up. I don't know if everybody would agree, but it's funny. I think the reason you've had such a long career is because every single person I know you've met real life has said, Doug is a really great guy. 100%. He just goes to show that being a great person pays off. Well, first of all, thank you very much. Very kind. Thank you. First of all, it's always important to try and hear people. And, first of all, it's always great to hear people when they say lovely things, because people are generally, even in this kind of wacky time we're in, where people are a little. I don't mean with the COVID thing. I mean, people are much shorter tempered than they used to be. I think it's important to always take a moment and acknowledge people. And the thing is, generally speaking, the flaming comments, obviously that wasn't, but when people are kind of like, they're troll-ish. I always have actually made a point of trying to listen, because I'm like, you know what? I want to know if there's any truth in what they're saying. Because it's sometimes, when we're inside our own bubble, it's easy to hear all the flattering talk and just go, oh, well, they're just a troll. Sometimes the troll sees things that and are honest enough to say them that we don't want to miss. By the way, I would never call myself this, but this is the most adorable thing that anybody has ever called me ever. My buddy Shane Wise. That I would never call myself the Gear Whisperer because it's just like people would the amount of trolling that would happen, but the fact that that's Shane's nickname for me is absolutely one of the most endearing things ever. So all right, awesome, awesome. Uh, all right. TikTok. Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing: it's about a younger generation. So let me read the whole comment. I'm sorry, Victoria. I agree with that, but have you seen some of the stuff people are putting out on TikTok? Keep in mind, I'm speaking of more of the younger generation these days. So the interesting thing is that I think one of the things that people want, arguably, is to just be entertained, right? That's that scene in Gladiator. Are you not entertained? I think there weren't a lot of musicians hanging out, watching the Christians get eaten by lions or whatever the heck was happening in the midst of all of that. The point being is that I think people want to just be able to just hit the pause button and just go, entertain me. And I think what's great about this is we live in such an age where people like it's I have strange analogies and they are often around food. It's like a Slurpee, okay? TikTok is kind of like a Slurpee. You got to be kind of a kid to probably really be super into Slurpees. But when you're a kid, there's nothing like a Slurpee, and you want to get the big giant one, right? So I totally get it. The interesting thing is I've discovered this band that some of you are going to be like, oh my word, he didn't know who that mastering engineer was. But I've discovered this band called Keane, Keane. And kind of one of the things I was thinking about doing was doing instrumentals. I'm not going to do it, I think, at this point, of songs that were kind of pop songs but they had to have at least 10 million plays on YouTube. That was kind of the prerequisite. And they needed to be like a decade or more older. And so as I was kind of searching that, kind of stumbled across this band Keane. And the interesting thing is that they sold, I think, 40 million records in the UK, which is an astronomical amount of sales. And the lead vocalist got this great voice, and they kind of like are kind of a slightly more modern take on Supertramp, but a little bit poppier. And the main accompaniment instrument is not a guitar; it's this CP70 Yamaha stage piano. But the point being is this guy's got this great voice, but it's very much a music that was set a decade plus ago. And you see people's comments that were teens and early 20s when that band was big, kind of really missing the old days, right? So and I mean, like, really, so the number comes in. I remember, life was so carefree and all of this. Like, there's a moment where that TikTok bubble, whatever TikTok, maybe, TikTok is going to be everything. It's going to be the new YouTube or not. But the point being is there's a moment where your youth ends and reality sets in. And I think the type of entertainment we seek changes. So as far as the youth, absolutely. And so the idea of like feed the meter and just kind of give them content. There is a lot of money to be made, not necessarily the money I want to make. But yes, and yes, you couldn't be more correct. That's so funny. Look at Shane. Will the new record be on vinyl for the analog types or who still sit at the cool kids table? 99% positive there will be no vinyl and no CDs. And it's that's all I can say. That's really cute. Got to go to bed. Have a good night, everyone. I love the photo, by the way. Thanks so much for hanging out. Really appreciate it. Okay. Oh, no, Tom. You weren't calling me out. I've actually been. There's not a week that goes by that I'm like, Oh, this chicken's going to come home to roost soon. And it did. So, no, that's a good thing. Oh. Ah, Stu, too kind. Too kind, too kind. Thank you. I appreciate that. Here we are now. Entertain us. That's so funny. All right. Well, oh my word. What? What time is it? Holy cow. Hey, folks. You know what? First of all, many thanks for tuning in. And I really appreciate all your questions. Let me just do one little thing. Because of the way I've got this set up over here, let me make sure that there's not anybody over here that I've missed. Okay, good. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time. It's been 3.5 hours. Am I out of my mind? I had no idea. First of all, thank you so much for hanging out. Again, my heart was to do as much as I could to kind of go, hey, look, this is what the steps were. This is what I can look back and go, this is what they did for me with the purpose of what they can do for you. So I really appreciate the privilege of being able to just kind of hang out and share this stuff with you. Headstock harem, I love it. Thank you. And just kind of run with it. I thank you for hanging out. I wish you an amazing week. Invariably, there may be some questions that are going to happen. I love the idea of kind of unpacking one of these singles, not so I can turn the spotlight on myself, but just more importantly, so I can kind of turn the spotlight on this gear and going, this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm using it. Again, thank you for being along for the journey. Just so many of you just have done so much to make this process of kind of growing and maturing. Oh, look at this. There he is. There we go. Gabriel. Dude, it's 12:30 there. Great to see you, my friend, by the way. With great pleasure, and thank you. Thank you. All right, on that note, everybody have just a wonderful night, a great week, an amazing weekend when it comes, and just thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Cheers. Bye-bye.